The boy activates his ability, Golden Hand, and establishes a connection with the sacred hammer Mjolnir, raising it high above his head. He reaches out to the altar and commands to create a divine weapon. Suddenly, a dazzling lightning bursts from the altar. The boy lifts Mjolnir and strikes the ingot with a strong blow. Immediately, a bright glow explodes around, and the space fills with an unusual, almost festive light. While people calmly walk the streets, in the living room of the new workshop stands the boy who will soon have to call this place his home together with his beloved. His name is Will Craft. He is the fiancé of Cyril Hassan. Now the boy looks at someone in surprise. The girl in glasses, who is sitting opposite Will, said in a calm voice that she wants to break off their engagement, and casually adjusted her glasses. Suddenly the boy tenses and nervously asks why she decided so. After all, their parents betrothed them. They had long agreed. He would inherit his father's forge, and she would take over the Hassan trading house, so he stands right in front of her and with a worried voice tries to convince her that he is right. The girl realizes that the real reason is completely different. She has truly fallen in love for the first time. At that very moment, she looks back and sees another boy approaching her. He gently takes her hand, hugs her, and softly kisses her shoulder. The boy, firmly holding the girl's hand, smiles slyly and cheerfully greets the main character, Brother Will. The main character freezes in surprise. Not believing his eyes now, he understands that before him is Seaton, and asks with amazement when they managed to do all this. The boy with the same smile tells her that when Cyril, her father, died and she was deeply grieving, he was constantly busy with affairs, and Set stayed nearby, supported and comforted her, unlike Will. The main character suddenly exclaims that he had no choice left. He fought with all his might to save the Hassan trading house from bankruptcy. Set smiles and says that it is not quite so. Everything got better only because at that moment they were simply lucky to get a big order. The main character freezes in shock and does not take his eyes off what is happening. The girl asks if this is a real case. The boy ponders her words. Seaton tells the girl that even after his father's death, he did not lose his spirit and did not give up. That is why people treat him with respect. The main character angrily stands up and indignantly demands, "Why do they now have a different house and shop?" Seaton turns to his brother, says that he will have to move, and immediately apologizes for this. He confidently says that this is their house, and they are not going to live together with her ex. The main character indignantly asks why they cannot stay at home in Syracuse. He again emphasizes that she should not live next to her ex. Seton, as if dropping a bomb, says that the building where Hassan's trading house stands belongs to Cyril himself, the head of the family. The main character is genuinely surprised, and then the boy puts his hand on the girl's stomach and whispers that very soon his child will appear here. Hearing these words, the main character sharply runs up to him, grabs him by the collar, and indignantly asks how he can say such a thing. Seaton looks at his brother with a calm gaze. He begs his brother not to shout. Loud screams scare Cyril. The main character looks at the girl with interest, then suddenly rushes to run away. Looking back over his shoulder, he shouts that they can do whatever they want with the house and shop, and the girl tries to stop him, asking him to wait. Seaton irritably turns to the girl and asks what they should do next. She says that she cannot allow him to leave the shop because Hassan's trading company needs his weapons. The young man reassures her there is no need to worry. Forging is not difficult for him at all. And at that moment the girl wants to say something else. The main character freezes in the open door and says to Seaton and Cyril that now all this no longer concerns him, then quietly closes the door, and Seaton with Cyril silently watch him go. Seaton recalls how in childhood he dreamed of becoming the successor of the parental shop. He often whimpered and demanded more attention, but Dad only cared about the older brother Vil. Koval was told that he is a unique master. They say such talent is born only once in 1,000 years. Will is a true master of his craft, generously blessed by the gods. A man with a broken sword addresses little Satan and says that they are alike, just ordinary people, no different from others. Seaton shouted to his father not to belittle him. How can he claim that he has no talent? Now, recalling the past, the boy realizes that he always hated his brother. He got all the best: the father's trust, his blessing, and a wonderful bride. Out of envy, the boy decided to take everything from his brother, and now he only smiles with disgust. The boy notices a knock on the door. An attractive girl enters the room with a bouquet in her hands. Behind her stands another person. The girl apologizes for the unexpected arrival and asks where to find Mr. Hippoki. Suddenly, a commanding voice thundered in the room. Everyone looked around in surprise and immediately bowed low before the girl who had just entered. It was the 7th princess, Anna Rose. The shy girl apologized and, blushing, asked if she pronounced Hapasai correctly. That is the name of the workshop. She had just learned that Will Craft opened a shop, so she decided to greet him and brought a bouquet of flowers. Set could not understand why exactly this princess came to their forge, and why she mentioned his brother Will, so he asked her again about Hoppasai. The princess in high heels approaches Kira and tells her that everything is happening just as it should. The bride of the son of the head of the Hassan trading house, Mr. Vila, looks up at the princess with surprise. The princess confessed to the girl in a bitter whisper that she envies her because she managed to marry such a handsome man, and Surakel looked up in surprise and asked whom exactly the princess meant. Seaton addresses Princess Anoros and tells her that his brother is no longer engaged to Surakel, and he himself has already left the shop. Now Seaton has become the owner of this place. Princess Anoros, hearing this news, just silently looks at him, confused and surprised. She smiles and confirms, yes, exactly so. This means that Mr. Villa is no longer with them. It turns out she was not mistaken. From now on, the supervision of Hoppasai has passed to them. Seaton confidently assures her that both the store and the entire inheritance will definitely pass to him. He calms the princess and asks her not to worry. He will take care of everything and resolve all issues, while the girl silently looks at Seaton and calmly adjusts a strand of hair. She laughs out loud, jokes about your loud words, which hardly resemble what you are really capable of. But in a moment she apologizes, turns around, and walks away calmly, leaving the couple in surprise. Everyone silently looks at each other. Confidently walking past the armed guards, she sternly orders them to immediately sever all ties with Hassan Trading House. The princess's order works instantly. The guards do not even hesitate. She smiles and says, "This is an extremely important task at any cost. Mr. Will must be found. He could not have gone far." One of the warriors throws a question. If their brother really continues the heroic work of Hoppasai, then why do they act this way? The princess instantly turns to him and calmly but sharply replies, "And what do you really know about Hoppasai?" The main character stands on the shore and quietly throws pebbles into the water. The pebbles skip across the surface, leaving waves behind. The main character makes an important decision for himself. Even if they return and apologize, he will never return to the capital. Grabbing the hammer, he confidently announces that the time has come to use his golden hand. Suddenly, the boy feels a special connection with the divine hammer Mjolnir. The hammer in his hand flashes with bright light, as if filled with otherworldly power, and at that moment, childhood memories return to him. Once he asked his sick grandfather what Hoppasai is. Grandfather whispered to Will that these people are blacksmiths just like him and have a golden hand. Then he raised his hand and a ring shone on it. Little Will asked again in surprise, and it turned out that the golden hand is a special gift to create the most diverse things, and all who were involved in the history of the Hoppasins always possessed this golden hand. The main character tossed a small object into the air. It spun in flight. The boy swung his shining hammer, activated a special blacksmith skill, and struck it before it touched the ground. This item turned into a real ingot. The main character carefully takes it in his hands and instantly understands. By selling such a treasure, he will forever forget about money problems, but at the same time realizes one must act carefully, because one careless step can destroy the entire financial system, so he squeezes the ingot even tighter in his hand. The main character remembered his grandfather's words. The golden hand grants each person only one unique ability. The most interesting thing is he has as many as 5 different skills related to making things. Such a thing had never happened in the entire long history of Hoppasai. He explains that Hoppasai, from the very beginning of their existence, gave their lives to honing skills in order to forge truly divine weapons. That is how he forged this special hammer Mjolnir. Now he passes this hammer to him, and from now on he becomes the new Hoppasai. The man thoughtfully looks at the hammer in his hands. Having received the title from grandfather Gankaji Craft, he also inherited the divine weapon, and the king himself asked him to protect the most valuable artifacts of the kingdom, the city barrier, the holy sword of the hero, and several other important relics, and he carried out this responsible task tirelessly. The princess addresses her guards with a grateful voice and says that it is thanks to Mr. Hoppasai that peace and tranquility reign in their country, as well as throughout the world. The warrior anxiously expressed concern about the protective barrier since Mr. Hoppasai is not nearby. The princess raised her head and said that the barrier was recently repaired, so there is no need to worry for a whole year. Then the warrior asked if he should inform the heroine Caroline about this. The princess notes that it is not necessary at all, but still throws a bouquet of flowers. She recalls how they recently examined the sacred sword of the heroine. Will replies that if they do not fight against the entire army of ancient dragons, the blade of the sword will quickly become dull. The girl sharply turns around and decisively orders to immediately find Mr. Will, insisting that everyone take care of the barrier's protection and the city's safety act without delay. People willingly obey the princess's order, and instantly disperse to their places. Caroline trusts Mr. Will not as a master, but as an ordinary person. Now that he has become free, she needs to find him as soon as possible before dangerous insects appear. The main character swings the hammer with all his might and hits right in front of the black cubic box, skillfully directing the blow into the slot on the box. At first, he will hide money there for the trip. This service is what his father started after the death of his grandfather, when the family was left completely without bread. However, the true purpose of Hapisai is not only this. Now the business is run by a store called Let's Section, which continues the established family tradition. The main character melted into a smile, recalling his grandfather's voice. The true purpose of the Hapised is not at all in service. Grandfather nostalgically remembered the divine hammer Mulaniera, a model for everyone. And now it is time to allow Vil to fulfill his Gapisai mission, following this path. Grandfather gently places his palm on the boy's head, who, sobbing, tightly holds the food close to himself. Once again, he asks his grandson not to forget the main thing. Hapsai is meant to bring gifts to the heavens themselves. Having said this, the grandfather's hand softly slides down, and the ring quietly disappears from his finger. The main character is sure that it was his grandfather who showed him the right path. He tosses something high into the air again and swings his hammer. Finally, his arrow hits the target exactly. It turns out it was a crystal of chaotic movement. Suddenly, the crystal flashes, which can transport anyone to a completely unfamiliar place where this person has never been before. The main character does not hesitate. He immediately grabs the crystal and uses its power. The main character closes his eyes and imagines. One day he will become a true master, like his grandfather Genkuji, dreams of setting off on a long journey, improving his skills, and finding new sources of inspiration. And he will definitely create an amazing weapon almost divine in power, similar to this beautiful hammer lying nearby. Suddenly, a sharp female scream cuts through the air. The main character instantly pays attention to it, and hands reach out past him for rescue. A girl with ears and a tail rushes straight toward him, and behind her roars a huge mad bear. The crying girl begs for help, hoping someone will save her. The main character looks confused but grips his hammer tighter and prepares to act. The main character loudly calls out to the huge bear, trying to stop it. He boldly rushes forward and powerfully strikes the beast, and at that moment the girl rises into the air and ends up behind the boy. The boy with closed eyes stands motionless. Behind him, the girl falls to the ground, gripped by horror. It is already dark outside. Right in front of the boy lies a headless bear, and the girl behind trembles with fear. The main character thoughtfully wonders if power can become a true home for him. Smiling and looking around, he suddenly notices something that greatly surprises him. The boy looks at the girl. Her face is drowned in tears, her body covered with scratches and bruises, and her legs terribly wounded. Only now does he realize that a beast girl stands before him. The main character anxiously gazes at the beast woman. He immediately sees that she has grabbed her wounded shoulder with her hand and barely holds back tears, and he becomes concerned about whether she is all right. The young man guesses that these things probably belong to slave traders, and the girl instantly averts her gaze, avoiding eye contact with him. He thinks that the traders have probably already become prey. The girl complains of severe pain, and the boy notices that she is injured. Suddenly, the girl bursts into a scream and breaks down crying. The villain, shock, shouted at her to stay put, raised his hammer very close, and activated his golden hand. He raises the hammer right in front of her face. At first, she only hisses angrily, then looks closely, and it seems that something about him makes her wary. The main character warmly smiles at the girl and says he will not harm her, but suddenly raises his hammer, combines his abilities, and activates a special power. Mjolnir sparks with powerful energy. Will precisely aims the hammer at the place where the girl's leg was torn off and initiates full healing. The frightened girl tightly closes her eyes, suddenly screams, and her leg is restored right before her eyes. Her wounded leg instantly heals right before her eyes as if nothing had happened. The girl is stunned, does not believe her eyes, stands up and, still recovering, asks Will with surprise what that was just now. The main character calmly explains that he used his hammer to activate a special skill. Thanks to this, he managed to fully restore all damage, and now he shows her his tool. Politely, they ask the girl to allow the boy to activate another one of his abilities. She looks at him in surprise, and at that very moment, something unexpected happens. Suddenly, a bright light exploded on the girl's neck, and the boy instantly activated his removal ability. The mysterious collar disappeared as if it had never existed. The boy smiles and warns the beastman, if you remove this collar incorrectly, you can lose your head, but now he is no longer captive. The girl joyfully exclaims, Burrow, and Will looks at her with surprise. The girl calls herself Burrow, happily hugs the boy and sincerely thanks him for the rescue, addressing him as a brother. The main character responds by stating his name and says they need to prepare for the night because it is already getting dark outside. Burrow froze in amazement, looking at Will, who decisively approaches the tree with a hammer in hand. He confidently swings the hammer in front of the trunk and says that this seems to be exactly what is needed. The main character uses his skill and transforms the tree into a cozy wooden house. He quickly swings and precisely strikes the trunk, while nearby in the grass a mule calmly grazes. After the strike, the tree emits a strange, frightening creak, and then suddenly completely changes its shape. Wall watches everything attentively and with pleasure smiling. Burrow is enveloped in genuine horror. He looks at this confusedly, cannot believe his eyes, and exclaims, "What is this? Did the tree just become a house?" A tiny wooden house appeared on the tree, a ladder stretches to it. At its base, a lantern gently swings on a chain, and the main character gestures for Burrow to come inside. At the border of the kingdom of Getaniga at this moment, something disturbing is happening. Thick smoke hangs everywhere. The knights, looking around, see scattered dragon bodies and instantly realize these are not isolated monsters, but an entire army of ancient dragons capable of destroying any enemy. One of the night guards notices a vague human figure at the top of the icy mountain, and what he sees strikes him to the core. From the mountain peak slowly descends a beautiful girl with a sword in her hands, and everyone instantly knows. This is the legendary heroine, owner of the icy sacred sword, Lady Caroline Iceberg. One of the knights asked if she came here alone. He noticed that one barrier around the city is not enough. It will not solve the problem, and true peace for the kingdom will be brought only by the ice heroine. The knights suggested Lady Caroline return with them to the castle. The girl looks at the sword with curiosity in the middle of the wild terrain, and one of the knights watches her attentively. She says that the blade has become completely dull. The knight understood her feelings and said that even the holiest swords become dull over time. He pondered, for Carolina, always reserved and cold, suddenly smiled right before everyone's eyes. The girl begins to respond, but does not manage to say the last word. In an instant she disappears from sight. The knights look at each other in amazement, not understanding how she could simply vanish like that. In the midst of the bustling streets of the capital of the kingdom of Gettinga, a girl suddenly appeared. In her hands was a sword that shone brightly, and on her shoulders sat a strange creature that cheerfully shifted from paw to paw. The girl instantly noticed that Caro was in a wonderful mood today, looked around, and carefully examined the little animal that clung tightly to her. Suddenly a cat appears before the girl. Its soft fur gently touches her cheek, and it asks, "Surely you are happy that you will soon meet your beloved master." A diamond-shaped spot shines on the cat's forehead. The girl glanced at the cat and joyfully said that now she would be able to meet Mr. Will. The cat, with closed eyes, quietly confesses that it also likes Willville very much, and warmly adds that he serves excellently. No hapsai before had treated the sacred sword so carefully and respectfully. The cat indignantly hits the girl on the head with its paws and harshly explains, "Will said that the sword will be sharp only when you defeat 100 ancient dragons. That is why she fought so fiercely against the entire pack of dragons." The girl sincerely admits with a smile that it is all true. She carries the sword for Mr. Will. He is the very reason she ended up here. She says that they have already arrived, stops near the house, holds a small mirror in her hand, and looks intently at herself, checking if everything is all right. Then she turns to the cat, asks it to look and give its opinion, and the cat assures her that everything is wonderful. She looks very beautiful. Seaton opens the door, at first ready to greet the guests cheerfully, but suddenly recognizes who is standing on the threshold. The girl's smile instantly disappears, her face becomes serious again, the cat seems to dissolve into the air, and Seaton, realizing that Lady Caroline is before him, bows low, showing his respect. The girl, with a nervous smile, asks the boy where Mr. Will is now, and he quietly replies that his brother is not here. Then Carolina enters the room and says she will wait for him here, and the boy adds that from this day his brother is dismissed, and he himself has become the new owner of the shop. Suddenly the girl sharply turns around and looks angrily at the boy. Dark, ominous energy seems to burst from her, and the boy, frightened, immediately covers himself with his hand. The young man asks fearfully if she is really so angry because of her brother, and the girl already understands that this reckless boy has sent Mr. Will away. The girl decisively raises the sword right to the boy's face. The blade is very close, and she asks where Mr. Will is because she urgently needs him to fix her sword, then pauses for a moment and asks if she seems strange to him, since she has no one else to turn to for weapon repair. The boy leans forward a little, and addressing Carolina, offers instead of his brother to give her the frosty holy saber, the ice heroine. But Carolina does not hesitate and immediately says that he will not succeed. The cat comfortably settled right on the girl's swords and is confident that only Carol and Vil notice her, although she still admits that maybe her brother will notice her too. The young man confidently declares that he can handle it. The task from his brother is just a trifle for him. The girl sharply pushes the sharp sword away from him and sternly asks if he realizes the consequences if he fails, and the boy boldly takes the sword in his hands and asks her to believe in him. The young man always walks with a sword at his side and sincerely believes. When Carolina learns about his strength, she will definitely return to him. He thought that his brother just appeared in the world a little earlier, and now he himself is going to take away everything that was most precious to his brother. The boy says he can repeat what his brother did, asks to watch, places the sword in the designated place, and suddenly the sword begins to glow, and the cat feels a sharp, piercing pain. The boy shouts, "This is very simple," and the cat angrily yells, "It hurts me a lot, be more careful." Suddenly the cat becomes huge, turning into a real giant. The magical sword hangs right in her jaws, and she loudly yells at it, demanding it to stop immediately. The boy stepped back a step and stared in shock as the sword hovered in midair suddenly. A sharp pain shot through his hand. Grain stretches out her hand, the sword flies into her palm by itself. She carefully examines the weapon and says that this sword is filled with rage. The cat, walking on the sword, addressed Seaton and said that he still does not hear the voice of his sword, he just uses it as he pleases. Whereas Will has learned to listen and understand that everything has a soul, and always treated his weapon with respect and care. The boy smiles tensely and asks what nonsense is going on here. He does not understand how things can be offended at all. The cat only sighs in response, thinking that nothing good will come of this boy. Carolina confesses, "This sacred sword lives its own life and has its own will." Mr. Will always took care of the sword, protected it so that it remained strong and did not lose its powers. Turning her back to everyone, the girl angrily says that she will never return to this place again. She turns and confesses to Seaton that both she and the sword truly appreciate his skill, because there is a huge difference between him and his brother Lordville. Surical passes by the girl and looks at her with surprise. At that moment, Seaton calls out for her to wait. Finally, Surical recognizes Lady Carolina in her, and the boy loudly asks her to stop once again. Suddenly, the boy falls to the floor and exclaims that he cannot believe it, he is not going to give up to his brother. The girl, stunned, looks at him and asks what all this is supposed to mean. The boy admits himself. He angered the icy heroine. She coldly said she would not come here anymore, but even without her enough people come to them, and Surico just looks at him irritably. She mocks him fully and adds, "If Lady Carolina did not like them, then it is as if the country itself turned against them. For them it is all over." An argument flared up between them. The girl irritably asks how to handle deliveries now, demanding quick action from him, when suddenly an unexpected guest knocks on the door, addressing the head of Surical and informing that the royal family has ordered to immediately stop all trade affairs. The girl exclaims at the man with annoyance not to interfere because she is busy, but suddenly both fall silent when they grasp the meaning of his last words. In the house, the light softly glows, and a little girl luxuriates in the bath, happy from the pleasant warmth. She tastes the dish and marvels how delicious it is. The girl notices how comfortable the clothes are, and when lying in bed, she cannot get enough of their softness. She with burning eyes tells him that he is a true wizard and even calls him brother. And the boy smiles and explains that with his skill of creating things, he warmed this house and made delicious food from materials he obtained thanks to his supernatural forging. The girl lies on the bed, smiling happily and with a sparkle in her eyes says, "This is incredible," adding that he is really very cool. He suddenly realizes someone is truly praising him sincerely. Recently, Surikai had only been talking about how the master must do even more things every day. For her, it was completely normal. The beast girl beamed with a joyful smile and addressed the main character, calling him a god. He remained calm and merely glanced at her. The main character suddenly remembers his grandfather and realizes he was a true genius. Unmatched during his life, the grandfather created countless incredible magical artifacts. Although it was difficult for Dad to match Grandpa's skill, he never gave up, constantly trying and creating many useful things for people. The hero stands in memories of his father and grandfather and feels he learned art from a man with a gift and from one who lived a very simple, ordinary life. The main character sincerely confesses to the girl that he is not really a god, but an ordinary blacksmith, just wants to give people happiness by forging beautiful things for them. The boy silently looks at the girl lying quietly nearby. He quietly asks if she is not sleeping. She has her eyes closed, so he thinks she is really very tired. Outside the window on a tree branch hangs a birdhouse. At dawn, the main character lies in bed next to the window and slowly opens his eyes. The main character stretched, yawned widely, and realized that morning had come. Suddenly something caught his attention, and he froze in surprise. He does not take his eyes off the girl who has comfortably settled on his bed in short shorts, with fluffy ears and a tail, and cannot get rid of the thought. Who is she really? The main character looks at the girl in surprise, who is calmly sleeping in the bed, and wonders who she might be. Her beauty captivates him at first glance, and the unusual ears arouse his suspicions. Vilux and Shock cannot hide their surprise when they see the girl wake up, stretch sweetly, rub her sleepy eyes, and joyfully greet her brother Vil with good morning. The boy instantly realized that the girl in front of him was really from Barreau, and impressed, asked if she had suddenly grown up. The girl looked at herself and with surprise noticed that her body had changed and could not believe it. She, surprised, running her hands over her body, says her name and notices that overnight she managed to turn into something new. The two of them go out of the house onto the street, and the girl suddenly rushes forward. He notices that she is walking too fast. The girl looked at her clothes, smiled, and told the boy that the things he had sewn for her were very comfortable, and then sincerely thanked him for such care. The main character, eyes full of curiosity, asks what the evolution of the essence means, and the girl turns to him. She warns Vilu that if the monster absorbs too much magic, it can turn into an even more powerful monster, and beasts have a bit of monster blood flowing in them, so such evolution can affect them too. Barrow approaches the boy, gently takes his hand and smiles, quietly whispers that there was a lot of magic in the dish he prepared. He approached the girl and, leaning closer, asked her to listen carefully, and then, with a trembling voice, asked if she really wanted to go with him. She suddenly stops and asks the boy if he has feelings for her. Vilu freezes in surprise and honestly says that he is not in love with her. Hearing this, Barrow just smiles and says that she is lucky she has nowhere to return to anymore. Embarrassed, Barrow frankly admits to Vil that she dreams of staying close to him and serving together. The main character notices that after the evolution, not only her abilities have changed, but also her character and even the way she speaks. After these words, the girl leans toward the boy and quietly whispers in his ear that now she can have children. The boy is shocked and suddenly starts to run away. Barrow, shouting that he understands everything, rushes off, and the girl runs after him, asking him to stop. Some time passed. The main character steps into the water and, confused, looks around. There was supposed to be a village Haraso. Where did all this water come from? Suddenly, the main character notices a road sign and pays attention to the strange, unusual name of the village. It immediately seems suspicious to him. They walked forward for some time, and suddenly a lake appeared before them. Will looks surprised and wonders where the village is supposed to be. Barreau noticed people in the distance and immediately rushed forward, joyfully exclaiming that he would finally meet them. Nearby, someone tells them that the village Dedend is located right under this lake, and Will and Barrow look at each other in surprise. When they turn back, an old man with a cane stands before them, introducing himself. He is Arthur, the local elder. The main character anxiously asks the elder if something happened to the people in the village. Old Arthur approaches those present and explains. Recently, a powerful downpour hit here. It flooded the entire village, and now there are almost no young people left. They are completely confused and do not know what to do next. Even if there were young people nearby, it would not change anything. The main character is heading somewhere, and Barrow notices this. She looks after him and asks where he is going, then, without hesitation, decides to follow him. The boy climbed onto the rock and froze to look around the surroundings from above. The girl approaches closer and asks, "What happened?" The main character explains that their village lies in the middle of mountains that surround it on all sides like a large bowl. And because of this, when the water came, it flooded the entire area. Looking at a patch of land, he felt that something new could be born here, so he boldly took up the hammer. Vil calls upon the power of the divine hammer Mjolnir and instantly transforms himself, growing to gigantic proportions. Everyone, including Barrow, watches with admiration as the hammer is illuminated by bright light and rapidly increases in size. The girl looks at the boy with surprise. She cannot believe how the main hero carefully counts the seconds until the moment he must do something. The hero swings the hammer and suddenly it elongates right before their eyes, becoming extraordinarily long. From the powerful strike, the hammer even bends, further emphasizing its strength and size. Finally, the heavy hammer falls to the ground with a dull rumble. Everything around trembles, and a powerful wave scatters from the impact. People barely keep on their feet, covered in dust and pressing their hands to their faces. Before Barreau is a huge pit, another one formed after Vil struck with the hammer. The main hero strikes the ground with the hammer once more with great force, and after that, suggests everyone go together and turns the hammer to a horizontal position. He strikes the mountain powerfully several times with the hammer, and after the last blow, the rock cracks and shatters into pieces. As soon as a hole split open in the mountain, water began to flow from it. The main hero watched this carefully and thought that maybe this was even better. All the people froze and looked toward the place where all the water had gathered, and finally realized. The main hero had managed to create a real reservoir. The elder says that the water is already receding, so it is time for them to return home. When they return to the village, a terrible sight appears before their eyes. The buildings are destroyed. Elder Arthur falls to his knees and only now understands. Everything around has perished just as he had predicted. Will notices that wooden houses are especially vulnerable to moisture in old ones. This is felt even more strongly, and suddenly a black cube appears right above him. The guide sharply pushes the hammer forward, and fragments instantly fly out from the cube. People look at him in shock and ask what he is planning, but the boy does not react. Calmly activates the golden hand, and his hammer fills with powerful energy. The main character uses a special power, full restoration, which resembles melting. He swings the hammer at the ground, and everyone around sees how the ruined buildings come to life. Pieces connect themselves, and the structures gradually return to their original appearance. The houses now stand made of new materials, and the main character, smiling with relief, says that now everything is fine. He also additionally reinforced the structures. People sincerely rejoice their homes are finally restored. They can hardly believe their eyes and ask again if this is not just a dream. The elder carefully examines the new walls, notices that now they are stronger than before, and smiling, jokes as if he has become a real wizard. The villagers bow before the main character and thank him from the heart, because now the elders in the village can finally live peacefully. And one of the residents smiles and jokes that for the master with the golden hand, this was a trifle. The elder addressed them and said that they want to thank him. Without raising his head from the ground, he asked if they needed anything. The main character stands by the table next to the fireplace and sighs. If he could not repay kindness to the one who helped, then what is the value of gratitude? In that case, all the villagers will remain dissatisfied. Will listens carefully to their conversation, scratches the back of his head, and thinks about what question to ask to express his gratitude. Suddenly the boy, as if recalling something, blurted out. Do the villagers have anything unusual, for example, weapons or some special items? And the villagers just look at him in surprise, not understanding what he means. On the wall hung a sword bound by magical seals. The main character entered the room and immediately noticed the strange sword, which seemed to be cursed. This unusual find instantly impressed him. The elder told that many years ago a brave hero defeated an evil god with this sword and saved their village. Over time, he himself began to lose his mind, so the ancestors decided to lock this sword away in the sanctuary. The main hero carefully takes the sword in both hands, examines it attentively, and understands. This weapon is truly frightening. The elder asks Will if he is sure about his decision. After all, even touching this sword is difficult for them, and he shines a lantern, watching the boy's actions closely. Will asks Ordersborough to wait for him outside, but she refuses. She cannot go outside because then she won't be able to protect him if something unexpected happens. The main hero does not hesitate and acts immediately. He raises the hammer with all his strength above the sword. The elder wanted to say something, but the boy instantly lowers the hammer, applying the destructive power of the first level. The elder froze in amazement, not believing his own eyes. At the same moment the main hero pulls out the sword. Several cracks are visible on the blade. The main hero looks at the sword and sighs. This time he was really unlucky. The blood on the blade forced it to be sealed for a long time, and now the sword is completely covered with rust. The elder approaches Willen and asks who he is talking to. Willen replies that if you imagine him as a sword, you can hear his voice. The main hero notices a strange, cursed energy forming around him. It seems to pull something incomprehensible and mysterious toward itself. The girl shouts to the boy, "Be careful," and the elder Arthur sternly warns her not to come closer. The main hero whispered cautiously that this sword is cursed. Just touching it will instantly fill the mind with darkness, because this weapon is connected with a dark and tragic history. Suddenly the chrysanoid energy flared up and turned into a strange creature. The main hero, puzzled and confused, whispered, "Who are you?" Burrow asks with surprise about whom exactly is being talked about, and the elder wants to know if Will can see the spirit of the sword. The elder explains that only special people can see the spirit of the sacred sword, and everyone is surprised. Could this sword really have its own spirit? But even sacred swords have their weakness. They were not created for the chosen ones, but so that anyone could use them. The main character says that a sword that can belong only to a chosen person is actually a real curse, completely filled with dark magic. Elder Arthur loudly and sternly orders the main character to immediately release the sword. Burrow is also worried about Will. This sword can drive anyone who touches it insane. The one who became its owner was first isolated and then locked in this dungeon. The main character grits his teeth and admits that he is in pain, and a strange creature with eyes full of pleading whispered, "Break me only, then will I finally be free." He will explain. He wants to create such tools that people will use with pleasure and to which they will return with joy every time. The boy firmly grabbed the hammer. It is what gives him hope for salvation. The main character activates the skill Golden Hand, and straining to the limit swings Mjolnir with all his might, aiming directly at the sword. Barrow is an old, mysterious force, possibly cursed, that closely watches the events. Soon everyone will learn that he is a blacksmith. His name is Hapasai, and he lives by repairing various tools. The main character firmly promises he will bring what he started to completion. From now on he calls himself Night Sky. The boy skillfully wields the sword, his movements confident and effortless. A creature woven from cursed energy suddenly shattered into pieces. At the same moment, a bright flash of light burst from the building and rose up to the sky. The main hero uses superfusion, and with all his might strikes the hammer onto the sword from such a powerful blow. Both Barrow and the elder barely kept their footing. At this moment in the kingdom of Gadajniga, a girl addresses Will and asks where he has ended up. Suddenly the cat freezes in amazement, and noticing this, the girl turns to Ice, asking what happened while the cat averted its gaze. The girl sitting on the cat turns toward that light and in an instant realizes a new sacred sword has appeared in the world. The main hero reaches for the sword, which shines dazzlingly. Strange symbols awaken on the blade, and dark, frightening energy begins to swirl around the weapon. The cursed creature that hovered over the sword suddenly changes right before their eyes. It becomes a naked woman, and in a moment magical clothing appears on her body. The girl smiles, greets him, and joyfully says that she sees him for the first time. At first she calls him a brilliant master, but instantly corrects herself and calls him her creator. The main hero lifts the sword and, worried, asks the girl if she is in pain. She quietly confirms that the pain has grown stronger, and suddenly the truth is revealed. She is the spirit of the sword. This blade is a sacred artifact of darkness named Yazora. The girl gratefully tells the boy that he finally called her by name, and the hero himself sincerely marvels before him is not an ordinary weapon, but a holy sword. The girl shares her story. Once she was a cursed sword, but later was reborn as a holy blade, and now she realizes that it was he who created this sacred sword. Elder Arthur carefully gazes at the girl in bewilderment and curiously asks what is happening here. Bro, without hiding his admiration, says that this is amazing. Burrow shayly whispered to the girl that she is extraordinarily beautiful. In response, the girl asked, "Is there anyone else who sees her this way besides the one who created her?" The hero throws the sword to the girl. She catches it with surprise and asks, "Can a holy sword belong only to the hero?" Suddenly the girl sharply swings the sword in the air. She tightly grips the hilt, and her eyes burn with curiosity as she looks to the side. The girl carefully looks at the sword and admits that as soon as she takes it in her hands, she immediately understands how to use it properly. And the boy replies that this understanding came to him in the morning thanks to Burrow. Burrow was so surprised by what she heard that she couldn't help but ask the hero again, and he calmly replied that not only did he become stronger, but his sword also changed and became more powerful. And the girl enthusiastically noted that this happens very rarely. The change and development of a weapon is a true wonder, something they had never even heard of before. Bill recalls that in the Far East, masters were accustomed to engraving their names on swords. His grandfather told him about this. Vil himself also left his signature with his golden hand, and sacred swords, he says, are weapons brought to earth by God's apostles. Elder Arthur, holding a lantern, froze in surprise and addressed Vil. He could not believe his eyes. This was the first time someone had managed to forge this holy blade. Vil recalls how old Gan Kuji often complained that he never managed to create a holy sword, but this time it was Vil who succeeded first, and Burrow curiously asks Vil, "What happened next? You did create a holy sword, a true weapon of the gods. That is truly great joy, isn't it?" The main hero admits that this time he is only finishing what someone else once left unfinished, so everything being created now was never really his own business. Vil sincerely rejoices Yasura finally feels true happiness, and the girl calmly and warmly gazes at him. He sincerely says that he dreams of someday creating the perfect divine weapon that will fully satisfy him, and to start everything from scratch. Carolina, with a cat on her shoulder, froze in surprise, seeing a bright flash far ahead. They could not believe it. It seemed simply impossible. The cat confusedly widens its eyes. It heard that a man created the holy weapon. Carolina skeptically asks if that is really so, and the stranger suddenly laughs cheerfully in response. Suddenly, the girl burst out laughing loudly. Ice asked in surprise what was so funny about it and whether she understood anything at all. The cat looks confusedly at our actions. Meanwhile, the girl cheerfully exclaims that now the whole planet will definitely recognize his power. Suddenly, an important thought occurs to her. She instantly jumps up and starts running. Realizing the situation is truly serious, she turns to Eyes and asks him to find the new sacred sword in the place they just jumped to, and the cat was so surprised that he got scared. The carriage rushes through the forest glade, and inside the main character reads a book and aloud reflects. The village Dedend is located at the very edge of the kingdom, so perhaps the road beyond leads to the Majuku Empire. He is laying out the newspaper, looks at the interlocutor and cuts in. You can go anywhere, just don't return to their native kingdom. Boru, instead of sitting on the cart, harnesses himself to the wagon and jokingly tells Will that he is very lucky because he received a whole wagon as a gift. The main character peeks out of the carriage and says that this is his way of thanking for the help in the village. He could not ignore their request, and the villagers warmly wave their hands to him as a farewell. The boy happily says that he has already been allowed to carry the sacred weapon of darkness. Boru looks at Villa and asks if she really wants to go with him. The main character looks her in the eyes and insists that this is the right thing to do. Asks to take care of Yasura and treat her with respect, because one day, thanks to Yasura, she will be able to give happiness to someone else. Yasuru settled on the roof of the carriage and joyfully exclaimed that the local air was so clean and fresh it took his breath away, and it seemed a true miracle to simply be under the open sky. The girl promises to teach Barrow how to handle a sword in return for the help shown, and asks in surprise if she can really become stronger. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind lifts everyone up, and they screamed in surprise. People cannot understand where such a powerful storm came from, and at that moment Burrow raises his head, sees something strange above, and immediately informs everyone around. Suddenly, the horse freezes right in the middle of the road in front of the cart, and a dragon flies down from the sky and with an irritated look, intently watches the people. The main character exclaims in confusion, a green dragon is before them. Suddenly, the monster flies into the sky and hovers right above them. Vil raises his head and warns that the dragon will attack from above. He enthusiastically says that the scales of this green dragon are perfect for making armor, and Yuzura notes with slight surprise that its creator sees monsters only as a source of materials that can be obtained from them. The girl suddenly turns around and confidently declares, "Give it to me." She starts helping Barrow with training, but during the first match she faces an unexpected shock. The main character resolutely promises to definitely test all of Yuzura's abilities at once. A girl named Nasai orders Burrow to move on, and she obeys, taking pursued with her. The dragon with a fierce roar looms above and lunges at them, while Yazuru orders Burrow to hold the defense. Burrow immediately agrees and instantly prepares for battle. Both girls fly up into the air towards the dragon, and at the very moment he is ready to unleash the flames, Burrow tightly closes his eyes. The girl slowly draws the sword from the sheath, and the main hero, seeing this, freezes in amazement. The girl, without opening her eyes, with one sharp swing of the sword, strikes the dragon right in the throat. Eri winced in pain. Blood oozed from the wound on his neck. The girl joyfully shouted at Will that she had managed to wound him, but suddenly froze as if she had lost touch with reality. She sees that the wound is not serious and this is not to her advantage. Suddenly, the dragon unexpectedly begins to swell, and she does not understand why. The girl grips the sword in her hands and whispers that she is scared. She is ordered not to look away, and suddenly she sees Yajura before her with surprise. Yasura approaches the girl from behind and says to her, "If you constantly hide your feelings, the fire of the soul will gradually fade." She orders Barrow to open his eyes and learn to trust his heart. The girl says that even in the darkest despair there is always a ray of hope, while Burrow meanwhile stands alert, holding a sword in his hand. Both enter the dragon's belly. Burrow tells her that he already sees it and is ready to act without delay. Yasuru suggests she start and joins the action herself. The dragon unleashes a powerful burst of flame, trying to cover the girl with a wave of heat, but she reacts lightning fast and skillfully deflects this fiery attack. Barrow strikes with all his might. The dragon falls helplessly to the ground. The creature no longer breathes, and the girl decisively lands nearby, firmly holding her weapon. The girl is genuinely surprised, and the main hero approaches her and praises her for a job well done. Burrow smiles happily at the success and says that they succeeded, and Yasori, lightly smiling, adds that what they just saw is not even a small part of her true power. She turns away and, with a slight smile, tells her that even such a small task is not always done right the first time. Burrow smiles and agrees. Although Yasori now has new powers, she is still a beginner with the sword. The main hero gently strokes her head and says that for the first time she did quite well. Will return to Yasori smiled and asked if it was true. She only nodded, and Boru watched them with pleasure. Ice gently calmed his mistress, assuring her that there was no need to rush. They slowly walked together along the forest path. Then Carolina shared important news. The Holy Sword has such power that it can destroy an entire kingdom, and she wondered if Will learns to forge such swords, what will happen when other countries find out. Ice says that a war will soon begin over who will get Will. The girl adds that this is not the worst. The most important thing now is that no one finds out that Will received the Holy Sword. The girl shyly admits that she will be the first to tell Will about her feelings, while the cat comfortably settles on his shoulder. The cat asks confusedly why everything is turning back to this situation again. The girl replies that as soon as it becomes known that Will is a heavenly master and can create holy swords, all the girls immediately start competing for his attention. The girl exclaims that she will not allow this to happen and asks the Iceman where they have ended up. And the cat replies that the holy sword is now at the very edge of the kingdom, near the village of Glucky Cut, right on the border with the Empire. Suddenly the girl stopped and, full of curiosity, asked about the Empire of Madjuk, who is considered a hero there. Everyone around supports Burrow, urging him to make an attempt. A murmur rises in the hall. Everyone is anxious. Suddenly lightning cuts through the sky, and Burrow, looking around confusedly, asks the others what he should do next. Suddenly a powerful lightning flash erupts just above their heads. They instantly cover themselves with their hands to protect themselves, and the main hero wonders confusedly. Could he have been the cause of this? Suddenly a girl appears with an eye patch and a weapon in her hand. She confidently says that she has finally found her teacher. The girl with the whip smiled and said that she had not seen them for a long time. Then she addressed the teacher, and Burrow asked him who she really was. Suddenly a girl appears near Burrow. She takes a fighting stance and confidently says that now everyone will find out if she can protect her teacher. The girl with one eyebrow snorted and said that she would check everything now. Barrow was already about to leave, but the main hero asked him to wait. But suddenly Boru deflects the girl's lightning-fast attack, and the main hero freezes behind, confused by what happened. Burrow looks at his rival in surprise and asks, "What is that you have? It's a whip, isn't it?" But in response, the girl only smiles mysteriously, explaining nothing. She whispers a Sekrother partner is actually the legendary Thunder Sword, and Sanders can hardly believe it. He never expected that he himself was also a holy sword, so he barely restrains his amazement at the discovery. Carolina and I quickly get up, and suddenly the cat throws out. It seems the grim hero first established contact with the city. She enthusiastically tells that on each of the 6 continents, a sacred sword is hidden, and each of these swords belongs to an amazingly beautiful girl. Carolina is firmly convinced that the hero of thunder is Raka Sanders, and decided if that girl steps into Pesterville, she will die by her hands. Ice urges Carolina, ordering her not to delay and run even faster. Burrow skillfully dodges another attack from the girl, while Riekia meanwhile hints to him. Her secret power is an incredibly strong grip. Barrow calls her a heroine and insistently demands that she answer for all her actions. With one sharp movement of the sword, he deflects her weapon. The weapon remained almost undamaged. Barrow is amazed at its incredible strength, and Reika asks if it is not a sacred sword. However, even such a weapon could not cut this whip. Rika says she cannot tolerate abuse of children, but despite this decides to attack her again. Burrow bounces back into the air, and Rika at that moment releases a powerful electric discharge that strikes the enemy. Rika sternly orders Barrow to disappear. Only now does Barrow truly feel how dangerous this is. But the girl suddenly performs alchemy right in the air, and a wall of air grows before her, reflecting the opponent's strike. The main hero holds a heavy hammer in his hands, and Yuzuru exclaims in surprise that the lightning strike leveled an entire mountain. It's simply incredible. The main hero gently takes Burrow in his arms. She meets his gaze and quietly asks for forgiveness. He calmly tells her not to worry, the enemy is really very strong. Suddenly Raka appears before them. Rika's with a serious face says that the woman is very weak. She, just like the teacher's wife, says absolutely nothing about herself, and the boy asks about his wife in surprise. Rika approaches the teacher and reminds him of his promise. "You remember that you promised to marry me if I win." Burrow looks around in surprise and looks at the main heroine, who is noticeably nervous. He cautiously asks if she decided to joke again, and the girl instantly replies that this time she is speaking absolutely seriously, and there are no jokes. The girl swung the whip above her head and shouted loudly that today she will definitely win against him. At that moment, the sky was covered with heavy clouds, and the first thunder with lightning howled. Yuzuru raises her eyes to the sky and is stunned. Where did these terrible black clouds come from? She realizes that during the fight she has not yet shown all her strength. The girl does not stop, spins the whip in her hands, and defiantly announces to the teacher that she is starting now. She says this is her new special attack. The girl sharply swings the whip in the other direction and loudly commands the dragon to move forward, when suddenly a powerful thunder dragon appears in the sky. The dragon roars at the people with uncontrollable fury, and Burrow freezes in amazement. Yazaro warns, one strike from this creature and everything around will become a scorched desert, and the main hero realizes that the moment has come to remove the restrictions from his hammer. The hero sharply spins the hammer above his head and throws it with all his might at the dragon. The weapon rushes swiftly and hits the monster right in the mouth. While Mjolnir pierces the dragon, the main hero puts all his strength into the strike, activating the most powerful level of the skill, destruction of everything. Suddenly, Mjolnir sharply changes course and rushes straight towards Will. He stretches out his hand forward, ready to catch the hammer. He caught the hammer and looked ahead with unshakable confidence. The girl immediately noticed that it was surprisingly easy for him to deflect the hero's blows, and she thought with delight, he is truly incredible. Burrow turns to Vil, and he explains who this woman is. Rika is a famous thunder wielder who serves the Empire. The girl sadly tells that she also has an eye enchanted by a curse. Burrow again asks about this eye, eagerly wanting to know more. The main heroine shares her terrible childhood story. Once a great misfortune happened to her, her right eye became known as the cursed eye of death, and all living beings she looks at with this eye are inevitably doomed to perish. This eye is a true cursed artifact. No matter how much it is treated, it repeatedly returns to its original state. Because of this, she was imprisoned in a dungeon. Although she had the sacred sword, the Empire could not accept the curse in her eye, so they searched for someone who could remove it and eventually turned to me. But he could neither destroy that eye nor extract it. Only one way remained, to create a magical artifact that would completely suppress the power of this eye. Because of this, everyone trembled at its gaze, calling it deadly, and I was thrown into a dark, damp prison underground for a long time. But the teacher changed everything. He came, saved her, and became a true hero for her. The girl frankly admits. Because of this, she wants to be near the teacher, but immediately adds she does not want to remain an ordinary girl who is simply protected. She always dreamed of becoming so strong as to easily surpass her teacher. But today, learning that he himself created the sacred sword, she realized only he can do this, and this thought made her immediately come here. The boy was sincerely surprised by her appearance. The main hero slowly approaches the girl, and she, surprised by such behavior, watches him confusedly. At that moment, Vil asks Reika to remove the seal from her eye. She asks what he means by that. Burrow shouts to the boy that inevitable death awaits him. Yazuru wonders what the next step of his creator will be. The main hero confidently looks her in the eyes and asks if she will entrust him with her life. The girl freezes, confused by his unexpected question. Suddenly she realizes this and with passionate confidence says that she gives him her life so God willed it. She places her thumb on her forehead and she begins to twitch. The main character smiles and happily says that everything is wonderful and they can start, then carefully takes her blindfold and removes it completely. Will notices that the cursed artifact is malfunctioning without hesitation. He rushes into battle and unleashes a powerful force that destroys everything in its path. He launches powerful alchemy and strikes with all his might with a hammer on the magical circles that appeared above the girl's face. They stood facing each other, frozen. Suddenly, a mysterious sign flashed in her eye. She looked at her teacher with surprise and a little confusion. Reika is still standing in front of him, covering her face with her hands, and cautiously asks if he is alive. The boy assures her that he is fine and asks her not to worry, and such an answer only surprises the girl even more. The girl smiles and says that her eye has already fully healed. Burrow notices that now her eyes shine in a special way. Yuzuru wonders if the cursed eye was made into a sacred relic. The main character confirms it is true. Once the night darkness was also a cursed demon sword, and precisely because Reika's right eye is a cursed artifact, he was able to change its power to holy and transform the sword into the dark sacred sword. To remove this curse, the important thing is not the artifact itself, but the method by which it was imposed. Reika did not expect this and was genuinely surprised to hear it. The young man disassembled the cursed artifact into separate parts, then reassembled them, returning it to its original form rather than creating anything new. Suddenly, a girl appears before everyone and insistently asks the teacher to teach her one more super powerful attack. And the main character, extremely surprised, asks if there really is another such technique. The sound of a fight is heard. The boy and girl collide with each other. She ends up on top, and the boy complains that she shouldn't press so hard because it hurts him. The girl, all in tears, cannot believe that the curse has really disappeared and sincerely thanks him. The main character confidently says that now she has become stronger too. She says with a smile that she is happy because he recognized her. She asks to take her as his wife, but the boy politely refuses. Night has already fallen. In the kingdom of Gaetniga, a man stands in his room by the table. He takes an unknown object, brings it to the sword. A bright magical sign appears on the blade, and after a second the sword glows with a bright light. A sinister smile flashed across his face, and he said, "Just press here and no one will ever know the truth again." He turns around and sincerely thanks the help was really needed, but the man in the hood just lightly waves his hand, as if to say no thanks are necessary. The man in the hood asks Seaton to use his skills, while he activates the seal and hides from prying eyes. The healer Lipson directly asks the teacher if he will agree to marry her. If she wins, she needs to know if it is true. She firmly says that with this new right eye, she can now do everything she desires. She gives the order to the Eye of the King of Time, stop the flow of time for the teacher. The girl spreads her arms to the sides and proudly freezes in a majestic pose. At that moment, the girl, flying past the boy who managed to dodge, suddenly hovered right above Burrow. He just froze in surprise. The girl looks at the teacher in amazement and asks why it did not affect him, since she felt the influence. The teacher, with a slight smile, explains, "It is because the artifact, the Eye of the King of Time, was made by him himself." The boy enthusiastically explained that God does not want people to use his creation to kill each other, so he embedded a special safeguard in it in advance. Burrow tells the man that he looks like a god. Reika perfectly understands it is only an illusion and there is no justice in it. In the carriage rushing to the Maniac Empire, the heroes exchange thoughts. Reika sincerely tells Vil he has not yet proposed to her, but she must tell the Emperor that it was Vil who healed her eye. The boy asks what the Emperor is like, and Burrow only smiles and advises to find out for himself. Vil looked around with admiration. They had already reached the very heart of the Carter Empire. No matter which road he took, the luxury and splendor of the capital amazed him more and more each time. The main heroine looks at the girl in surprise and asks, "What is this shining dome?" The brother asks where exactly it is located. The young man points with his hand and says, "Do you see it over there? This dome covers the entire city." Yuzuru quietly explained to the boy. In front of him stands a protective barrier that guards the whole city. Ordinary people do not see it, and it became clear his abilities are much more powerful. The boy admits, previously he only installed devices that create barriers, but he sees a real barrier for the first time in his life. They enter the magnificent imperial castle. The three heroes slowly move forward to the man beside whom stand two servants. Rika informed the Emperor that she had returned. Upon learning this, the woman asked if it was really Rika who had returned. Burrow was stunned with surprise. The empire is ruled by a woman. Rika calmly explained to him that in their world power is given to the strongest, and gender does not matter here. When a great danger was approaching the country, Empress Artemida led her army and took the warriors into battle. Alongside them, her courage saved the country, and thus she became the first female emperor in history. The woman says that she has not met Vil for a long time, and Vil, addressing Artemida, says the same. They really have not seen each other for a long time. The girl looks with surprise. How could they have known about this? Rika says that Her Majesty herself asked the teacher to help with her eye. The Emperor sincerely thanked them for saving Reika from the curse for the second time, and apologized when he started having a coughing fit. Burrow, with anxiety in his voice, addresses Artemis and asks, "Are you feeling unwell?" Rika adds, "Her lungs are severely damaged. The cough is becoming increasingly painful, and even the most experienced doctors cannot find a cure." She quietly whispers that she has almost no time left. Her hands tremble as she extends a handkerchief with a noticeable bloodstain to the servants. The boy stubbornly denies it, convincing himself that it is not true and that she will definitely recover. But Artemida quietly replies that the doctors said her body is severely damaged and there is almost no time left, and the boy asks again, unwilling to believe what he heard. The girl sincerely thanks the boy and says she is happy to have the opportunity to express her gratitude before leaving this life, and the boy is stunned with surprise upon hearing these words. The main character says he wants to ask her for something. She smiles and replies, "Don't hesitate, say everything directly, you truly deserve it." He saved the hero and has now become a true savior for them. The boy offers Artemida to give him a chance to heal her wounded body, and these words shock her so much that she cannot believe what she heard. She quietly told that the doctors have completely lost faith. Not even the Holy Virgin could save her, and he is just a simple blacksmith. Things can be fixed, but people cannot, and the boy sincerely admitted that his knowledge is only enough to heal wounds or fix something broken, but he does not know how to cure diseases. after which she sadly added that her body is already almost destroyed. He said he will not treat the disease. Instead, he will try to return to the body everything that the ailment stole. Reika tells the emperor that Vil really reminds her of a god, so she believes he should be given a chance to prove himself, and she supports this. He healed Rika, so the main character considers him reliable. Now the hero unleashes the power of the golden hand. The hero has fully recovered and now boldly demonstrates his strength. You will immediately notice the bright glow. The girls froze from the extremely bright glow, and then suddenly a colonel runs into the room and announces urgent danger. Colonel Akiak says, the emperor is currently receiving necessary medical assistance. He also mentions strange events. The protective barrier suddenly failed, and magical insects rushed to the capital. Rika is sure this is all complete nonsense. On the high balcony, the heroes stand, intently watching down. Strange insects flutter around them, and the surrounding world is pure chaos and bustle. Many amazing insects flutter in the air around. The locals hurriedly leave their homes and head to the imperial castle. Reika sadly says that they did not manage to arrive on time. Akiak anxiously reports that magical insects penetrated inside through the broken barrier, and Raka immediately orders to restore the protective barrier. The Corps insists a master must be found who can repair the barrier device, since such a specialist has not yet been found. The hero, with a confident voice, says, I will restore the barrier literally in a moment. Kayak stands in confusion. He simply cannot grasp what veil means. Suddenly, the hero's golden hand power comes alive. The hero realizes how serious everything is and sees a magic circle right in front of them. Vil boldly uses his powers to repel the enemies. Suddenly, a swarm of magical insects explodes around, flying in from all sides. The hero summons the restoration technique to heal his wounds. The group of heroes, holding their breath, watches as Will demonstrates his skill. Will says this light is too strong for the insects. Suddenly, Kayak notices all the magical insects have disappeared somewhere. The Corps loudly declared that from now on it can act independently and no longer needs any devices. It warns, if anyone approaches or touches it, this creature will immediately die. The colonel says that the barrier is completely invisible, so people do not even notice it. Will clarifies, it will not disappear on its own, it can only be destroyed intentionally, using special means. The hero notices that the colonel is all sweaty, asks with surprise what happened, and then suggests, maybe Kayak broke the device. The young man angrily said that acting like that is dishonest. Suddenly a woman appears, a crown shines on her head. Will freezes the crown on her head, and he has one question, who is she? The woman in the crown called herself Artemis, and asked the hero if he recognized her. The heroes simply cannot believe their eyes when her true eye emerges. The heroes with wide-open eyes look at Artemis and ask what happened, and she quietly explains that Will healed her mutilated body. Will adds that he not only cured the damaged cells, but also refreshed even those that were already old. People gathered on the balcony, they sincerely greeted Artemis, calling her a divine miracle and joyfully shouting warm words of welcome. Artemis orders to seize Colonel Akak, but he did not lose composure and calmly stated that if he is arrested, everyone gathered here will go with him. Colonel Akak shows 7 tiny grains, each of them symbolizes happiness. Will does not understand at all what the colonel really planned. The girl begs the man to stop. Suddenly Artemis throws a seed into the sky, and it instantly finds itself somewhere high above the ground. Artemis, with a voice as firm as stone, decisively says that she will never forgive those who cause pain to the people of the empire. Suddenly, a deafening explosion spreads around. The heroes sincerely thank Artemis and address her, Your Majesty. The young man sincerely thanked Artemis for her support and confessed that the most precious gift for him is her beautiful smile. Artemis stands, her face illuminated with genuine surprise. Rika politely addresses Artemis, calling her Your Majesty, and suggests at least briefly joining forces. He asks in surprise, what are these 7 lucky signs? The heroes reach the kingdom's capital. It is there that the Hassan trading house stands, and the girl sighs sadly. Now neither the royal family nor the nobles order anything from them anymore. The council head, with anxiety in his voice, says that if they lose another important client, things will become truly serious. She quickly reported that she cannot talk right now, she is busy, so she asked to wait a little longer. The guildmaster approaches the girl. Cracar, with obvious surprise in his voice, asks, why did the S-Class guildmaster himself decide to come here? The guildmaster, with a sincere smile and a heart full of gratitude, thanked for the wonderful sword they recently managed to obtain. Sarakar suddenly remembered. This sword was created by Vil, and the woman added that they recently received 50 more swords of the same Class A. The girl asks if these swords are really that sharp. And another character, smiling, replies that they look extraordinary. But their quality let us down, it did not meet our expectations. Sirakar froze, looking ahead at several broken swords. The guildmaster grimly explained that the Class A sword they recently purchased turned out to be a fake. She explains that it all happened because one of her most important subordinates could have gotten into big trouble, and adds that she intends to take the Hassan trading house to court for the fraud that occurred because of this incident. The girl with glasses keeps repeating that this will not happen again, and adds, if they are found guilty, everything will be lost for them. The guildmaster spoke in a heavy voice that the trading house found itself in great trouble. The woman sharply turns around and without hiding her determination says, see you in court. Seaton notices they were too easily fooled. He admits that the counterfeit curse works brilliantly and says how he bought cheap swords, put the necessary stamp on them, and slightly changed their appearance to then sell them for much more. When the sword suddenly broke, Surakar turned to his brother and embarrassed asked, what could this mean? I noticed that your machine caught an interest in the sword and wants to learn more about it. Suddenly she realized the sword he created was actually a fake. The heroine sadly told that the highest rank S-Adventurers Guild complained about Sendin's actions. He says that the company is already making money at the sales stage now. For them, the main thing is not quality, but how much product they can sell. Sarakar explodes with outrage. How can money be placed above the quality of work? He says a true master does not think so and demands explanations. She adds, if the quality worsens, buyers will go to competitors, not to us. The girl, with curiosity in her voice, asks if he can become a mentor who surpasses Will. Surakar does not back down, insists that the young man forge an A-class sword, and the boy, worried, asks for just a little time to prepare. She said without hesitation that he will fail, and called this attempt completely futile and senseless. Finally, Sirakar admits that she understood everything and reveals the truth. It was Will who helped Hassan's trading company. She explains that Will made very high-quality products, so his swords were always in demand. Sechin begins to boil with anger because of how Will behaves. The young man adds that he can do the same, explains. You just need to use the cursed artifact, and the weapon will immediately become a shrine. Kar laughs at him, calls him a fool, and throws in his face that in real life there is no such ease and convenience. In her thoughts, she again plunges into memories of Will. The girl quietly admits that she herself once behaved foolishly. She recalls how naive her request was to ask him to wait. Surkar powerfully hit the boy right in the face. She bitterly says that Will was much better than him, and cannot help but compare them to each other. Takeshi, with his head down, drops to his knees and angrily pounds his fist on the floor. Suddenly he is overwhelmed by the realization Will is better than him in everything. The man irritably expresses his dissatisfaction. Polo sharply pointed his hand in the right direction and addressed Will. Here are the territories that the Empire inherited from Queen Artemis. Will says there is no need to thank him, but Artemis disagrees. He has already saved the Empire 3 times, and that is quite enough to sincerely thank him. Polo suggests giving this place the name Will Craft Derrier, but Will notes that such a name is too complicated and too long, so the young man is glad that smart people have gathered nearby and hopes that soon those who will help organize these lands will come here. Artemida says that she will still need a workshop, and then asks Will about the village itself. The young man suddenly noticed. The village was completely empty, not a soul around. The girl fell to the ground, and suddenly she was pierced by a burning, sharp pain. Suddenly, a large monster lunged at the girl. She insists that Erica is not here right now. Will sharply grabbed the hammer, preparing to protect the girl. The young man does not hesitate. He swings again and strikes with all his might, directing the blow forward with the hammer. The main heroine confidently and firmly says that she never forgives those who offend girls. The girl screams at him in despair, begging him to stop the attack and not take her grandfather's life. The girl says, his name is Vila Crafta Di Raleigh, and another asks with curiosity if he is by any chance the new lord. With smiles on their faces, people approach the new lord and ask him to support their village. The girl with fluffy ears inquires what exactly the word heroes means when it comes to them. Her name is Noya. Noah pointed at the lizard and explained that it was none other than Grandpa Sebast, the village elder, and Will asked in surprise why he had turned into a lizard. The girl turns away, and suddenly lizard scales appear on her back. But she says that this misfortune is not an accident, but a curse of the white dragon god who lives in the mountains called the spine of the white dragon. She whispered that this is an ancient deity who controls the winds. A person touched by his breath may be cursed and turned into a dragon, and she also warned if the curse grows stronger, the person will eventually turn into a lizard. Will said with interest that he wants to try, and suddenly his gaze stops at the magic circle nearby. The boy performs his work with passionate zeal. I awaken this power and give it a name, Golden Hand. The young man decisively says he is ready to destroy everything around to build a new world, while meanwhile the lizard slowly changes and acquires human features. Noah was delighted when she saw the old grandfather with gray hair. The old man, with eyes full of gratitude, says that he has managed to become human again. The girl quietly explains that the new lord has returned his human form. Polo asked everyone to line up for treatment. People gathered together, and one by one began to approach to receive help. The resident looks in surprise as everything around returns to its usual appearance again, and Will calmly says, "It is all over now." The girl asks the new lord with curiosity where he will go next, and he calmly replies that the next goal is the White Dragon. Perhaps he is hinting at the 7 lucky motes. The heroes stepped onto the snowy ridge of the White Dragon. Polo notices how the air around becomes heavy and seeps with poisonous fumes. She says that if Mr. Will had not created that protective barrier, they would also have found themselves in terrible trouble. Will realizes with surprise that the source of the curse is not here at all, and the heroes instantly notice. The White Dragon has disappeared somewhere and left no trace. Polo clung to her legs, and she immediately fell to the ground. She could not help but be interested. What is this? The hero freezes before him is a giant creature, and he immediately recognizes it as the White Dragon. Polo insists that the dragon is actually black, not white. The dragon shows its power. A stream of scorching flame bursts from its jaws. The young man decisively gets to work, bravely defends himself, and swiftly launches a counterattack on the dragon. We will put this unique alchemy into action. The dragon opens its jaws wide, preparing to attack, and rage burns in its eyes. The boy says that this is an improved version of the barrier from the capital. Polo looks closely at that sacred protective partition. He also added that the barrier now not only protects against the dragon's poisonous breath, but also repels physical attacks. It turns out he has improved the defense. Suddenly, the heroes noticed something quite unusual. Let's check is there still any space left beneath them. He quietly asked her how she felt after everything that had happened. Polo raised her eyes and sincerely thanked the protective barrier that saved their lives. Note, this dragon cannot rise into the sky as if some invisible weight is pulling it to the ground. He becomes curious whether dragons can be cursed. The young man nodded, confirming the decision he had just reached in his thoughts. The girls excitedly call out to Mr. Will, and he, without hesitation for a moment, goes straight toward the giant dragon. Polo is convinced. The dragon got angry because they accidentally stepped on its tail, but he himself will firmly deny this. He quietly tells his surprised companion, this creature is not evil, in fact, it is crying. Will approaches the dragon, quietly asks it not to worry, and promises that he will soon help free it from pain. The dragon quietly bows its head before the boy. The youth smiles, raises his hammer, and confidently exclaims, I will definitely handle this task. Vil lets out a loud scream, shouting the name of his power, first destruction and then rebirth. The dragon wrapped itself in a dazzling glow, roared fiercely, and began to transform right before their eyes. The dragon, having changed its form, impatiently asks if its scales really have the right color. Vil is amazed that such powerful monsters can talk. The dragon calmly explains that it can talk after all. It is Mazin. Polo, stunned and full of wonder, asks again if Mazin is really a god who descended from the heavens, then sincerely thanks the heroes for saving him. Jesus smiles and says that he is merely a traveling blacksmith. The dragon majestically pronounces the boy's full name and adds that it is the same as his own. Upon hearing this, the hero freezes in surprise. He is called Lori and says that the former king gave him these lands. We instantly understand why they share the same surname. Rush to apologize for accidentally stepping on his lands, but Lori only sighs heavily and says that the kingdom no longer exists. The youth falls silent. Why then is the dragon under a curse? Lori turns his thoughts to the past and quietly admits that since the king died, his heart has been sinking in unspeakable sorrow. The dragon sadly confessed that he had lived in solitude for years and did not even notice how a poisonous curse fell upon him. Polo explains that because of the dragon's wind, the locals were poisoned, and Lori despairingly realizes it was he who inadvertently brought misfortune to those he once ruled. Will gently whispers to the dragon that he did nothing wrong and asks him to look around to make sure everything is fine. The heroes stand in the middle of a vast scorched plain, surrounded by thick darkness. Here a special camouflage technique is used. We will explain how it works and ask Lori if he can notice it. He says that this is not an ordinary barrier, it is a special technique. It amplifies negative energy and simultaneously restrains Mawson. The young man, with a spark of confidence in his voice, claims that the curse could only have been cast by the one called Shichai Fukyujin. When the dragon heard this name, rage seized him. The horror of how Shichai Fukyujin destroyed his home surfaced in his memory. The dragon does not react at all. Polo immediately notices this. Will says that it is better to entrust the house repair to a master blacksmith, and shows how he can disassemble things into parts and then put them back together. From the ruins, a magnificent castle suddenly grows as if it appeared out of nowhere. Polo watches this spectacle with admiration and notices that the protective barrier has already disappeared. Will breathes a sigh of relief, happy that he can now come and go peacefully, but suddenly something unusual catches his attention. Unexpectedly, the dragon Lori transforms into a beautiful girl with horns and eyes wide open in surprise, pronounces her name. Her heart clenched in shock when she realized that the castle once built by Vil is now considered a sanctuary. Lori explains that the gods who remain on Earth are gradually losing their power, while in the world of gods, Emizan can fully reveal its might and even take human form. She felt that the castle built by Mr. Will had turned into a true sacred place. Will cannot believe his eyes. He is stunned. It was he who managed to create a divine territory. Lori noticed a mysterious mark on the hand and immediately recognized it as the symbol of the solar disk. It turned out to be the golden hand, an extremely rare blessing that grants a person the very power of the sun. Lori notes, there have been so few such owners throughout history that they can be counted on the fingers of one hand. Polo is impressed by Lori's deep knowledge. The girl suddenly remembers that she had exactly the same mark at home. Will cannot believe it. She draws his attention to the floor, and there, right before them, a large round emblem is brightly outlined. Will, widely surprised, notices this symbol is exactly the same. Lori recalls how sincerely the king valued this place. She still cannot comprehend what the inscription there meant. Lori notices nothing strange, but we guess somewhere here hides some secret mechanism. He touches the sign, and it instantly flashes with a dazzling light. The girls call him with trembling, but at first he does not notice their shouts. Will, gripped by fear, notices that the device reacted to his sign, and suddenly the dazzling light begins to irresistibly pull him inside. Will looks at his hands with surprise, as if he just found something strange in them. Suddenly he realizes that he is in an unfamiliar place, surrounded by tall, majestic columns. Looking around, he stood confused and vainly tried to understand where he had gotten, and what this strange place before him was. Larry, with concern in his voice, asked, "Are you okay?" Suddenly Will notices that a foreign voice spoke in his head. Lori explains that this is telepathy, the ability of Mazens to communicate with thoughts. She says with burning eyes, thanks to this ability, all 5 senses can be transmitted. Lori notes with amazement, as if the whole earth melted, they found themselves in some place very similar to a city. At first Will froze in confusion, but later understood she was right and agreed. Suddenly something invisible appears in his path. He stretches out his hand and feels a transparent wall in front of him with his palm. One morning we will lift our eyes to the sky, we will not find the sun there, and then we will wonder, could something unusual have happened? Lori quietly says, although the sky and the forest around seem real, in fact this is only a skillfully made illusion. Having compared all the facts, the truth emerges. Both the sign near the entrance and this artificial city are the work of the HAPO Workshop studio. He remembered how the old man constantly insisted that outsiders are not allowed into the workshop, and finally understood. It is all because of such a vigilant guard as Lori. Loli says that he feels here as if frozen silently, like some kind of guardian statue. He notices, in some places the space seems distorted, so he decides to touch one of the symbols on the floor. As soon as he touched the sign, a strong wave of energy rose around him and swirled. The whirl spun, and suddenly right before him, a bright tunnel opened, what he calls a corridor. Loli exclaims to Will in confusion, "You are right here in this dungeon called 7 Pits. Such a place is incredibly rare." Will, completely confused, involuntarily repeats the unfamiliar words, sevens and falls. Lori explains that across the planet there are 7 such dungeons hidden, but so far only one has been found. Will became the first to dare to find the entrance and step inside. Will touched the dungeon wall and immediately understood. The local mineral is completely different from the stone from Camusia. The boy excitedly realizes that, from this amazing mineral, he will be able to create a new weapon. Suddenly Lori remembered how he once read in a book that the walls of this prison cannot be destroyed. Suddenly Will, with just a light hammer strike, breaks through part of the wall. Lorius cannot believe his eyes in this move. He recognizes a true divine technique. Will asks in surprise, is this really true? Lori exclaims in despair, warning that this incredibly dangerous technique can destroy all living things in the world. The boy, without unnecessary emotion, unleashes a new power. The fragments of the wall under his will gather together and turn into a real furnace. This impresses Laurie even more. We explain this is the very special trait of the golden hand. Laurie is stunned because usually such a hand has only one ability. Will remained calm and, as if casually, informed that he has as many as 5 abilities, among them super-fast processing, destruction, and complete restoration. He admitted the 5th skill is not to his liking. It can only be used once, so he decided to first carefully study what it is capable of. Laurie surprisingly realizes that he managed to complete everything within the allotted time, and thanks to the lightning-fast ability to process information, instantly creates a detailed map of the dungeon. He smiles and hands her a detailed map of the entire labyrinth, and she is frozen with surprise and cannot understand how he managed it. Laurie still cannot believe in his extraordinary abilities. He says that the strike against the wall released waves that spread through the ground like sonar and probed everything around. Will quietly says, "I am not a god, I am just a wandering blacksmith. With my own hands I can make various good things." He turned back to his friend and Polo, overflowing with joy, threw herself into his arms, exclaiming with happiness. She holds him so tightly in her embrace that tears burst from her eyes, and she whispers to him how much she worried about him. Laurie whispers that only 1 hour has passed for them, while on the surface, 10 days have already gone by. Time flows very differently in the dungeon. To apologize for his actions and the caused worry, he decides to give her a small gift and sincerely ask for forgiveness. Suddenly, Vil's voice sounds in Polo's head, and she realizes with surprise that now she can communicate with him anytime and anywhere. The girl, with eyes full of happy tears, thanks him for the wonderful gift, and Laurie smiles and says that there is true telepathy between them. Will excitedly told that together with Laurie, they created a unique hair ornament from minerals that allows telepathic communication, and the girl immediately understood. In fact, this is an indestructible artifact. Larry still cannot recover from what happened, while Will says he has one more request for her. Now the events unfold in the village of Lurisman. Noah, with a plea in his voice, asks his grandfather to rest a little. But the grandfather, even coughing, refuses and insists he wants to help the village flourish as soon as possible. She explains that everything happens by the will of the Lord, and suddenly a huge figure with wings emerges right in the sky. A huge white dragon proudly soars among the clouds. Its splendor and size are stunning. As soon as people saw the dragon, panic and horror swept through the village. At first, people froze in terror, seeing a huge dragon before them, but in a moment they recognized their divine protector Laurie in it. No one ever found out why exactly the dragon god was cursed, and the village was gripped by panic. People scattered, overwhelmed by horror and fear. Laurie is going to leave so as not to frighten the inhabitants of his village, and we will arrange with the dragon to wait a little longer. Follow gathered all the villagers, and with a radiant smile announced that the curse of the dragon god was lifted. Will confirmed his words and assured that this curse no longer threatens anyone. Let's imagine that the dragon himself suffered from the curse. Now, he wants to apologize for all the inconveniences he caused. He approaches the dragon again and, clenching his fists, asks if he really wants to apologize to the villagers. Will asks the dragon to share some materials, but does not wait for an answer, carefully removes a scale from its body. He tosses Laurie and the scales into the air, and they cheerfully whirl in the air. Will places the scales on the fountain, and it immediately bursts into all the colors of the rainbow, enchanting and amazing all the city inhabitants. The water from this fountain has amazing healing power. Whoever tastes it immediately feels a surge of energy and cannot believe this miracle. We will say that Mazen's scale has healing properties, and from now on the fountain will forever grant these amazing powers. He joyfully says that now the healing power of the white dragon god can cure any disease or wound. The peasants sincerely thank the dragon god and accept his apology, which he conveyed in this form. The dragon Laurie glanced at Vil with quiet gratitude and whispered, "Thank you." Suddenly, an unfamiliar postal oil unexpectedly landed on Vil's shoulder. He had not seen such here before. The owl spreads its wings and flies to him, holding a letter in its beak. On the envelope, the inscription is clearly visible, "To Mr. Vil." The letter anxiously reported, the hero of the water element was wounded in battle, and his sacred ice sword was broken. 4 hours ago, right in the very center of the capital Carter, a brave warrior woman repelled an attack by guards who tried to force her to retreat. With tears in her eyes, the girl desperately begs the guards not to stop her. She urgently needs to get to Mr. Vil. Kit notices this time their opponent is significantly stronger than all those they had faced before. Above the heroine lying on the ground, a huge monster loomed, and she realized it was time to use her last weapon. She strikes with her incredible technique, the double moon shard. Kit began to explain the essence of this technique. First, it destroys everything around like a thin crescent moon, then everything around freezes with cold, like a full moon in the middle of the night. Whoever is caught under this attack. Although she was inflicted with countless wounds, the monster instantly restores its body. Carol is seriously wounded. The cat, worried, runs up to her and anxiously asks if she is okay. The cat thanked her and sincerely confessed she was glad to become a sword for her. The girl cries out to him in despair, tearfully begging him to stop immediately. But at that very moment, the companion's sword throws itself at the enemy. The sword launches its final move, Absolute Zero. The girl runs into the hospital ward, her hand trembling. She stretches it forward and calls out in despair. Ice. We will calm Carolina, assure her that everything is fine now, and gently advise her to rest a little. Carolina sees Mr. Will and calls out his name. He responds sadly, uttering the name of her sword. For Carolina, the iceberg of the sacred sword became her true family. Polo asks hopefully if the sword can be restored to its previous state, and Will wonders why Hoppo was entrusted with caring for this sword. The holy sword, like a person, will not recover easily. It requires constant care and proper maintenance. He comes to a bitter conclusion. If this sword breaks, it cannot be restored. Carolina clutches a shard of the sword in her palms, tears glistening in her eyes, and she sincerely thanks Ice, while apologizing for not having time to say goodbye to him. Villain and Polo froze, stunned by the sight of the shards of the holy iceberg sword. Caroline looked closely and asked if this was its heart. The boy whispered that the source of the sword's power was hidden right here, and confidently promised Carolina to do everything possible to restore this power. Caroline looks at him with hope and asks, can he do it? Vil dodges the question, giving no clear answer. If he makes even one mistake, his actions could cost her family their lives. She admits that without the sword, her life has no meaning. It is like dying. Vil looks at her with deep sorrow. He clearly feels how difficult this task is. Even his teacher could not restore the sacred sword. But despite all difficulties, he bravely takes on the task. An exciting healing ritual begins, and Carolina, all in tears, sincerely begs the sword to return to her. We will get a complete map of this iceberg. It instantly decides what exactly to do and how to work with the material, and immediately starts the restoration process. Vil gathered together 5 production skills left to him by his ancestors, and on this basis acquired a completely new, unique skill. He shouts decisively and strikes, unleashing his new power, Restoration. Lika suddenly froze and pondered. Who was the creature that the ice heroine had locked away with her sword, sacrificing her own life for it? She instantly orders the soldiers, shoot the creature that broke free from its icy imprisonment. The man, his voice trembling, says that the monster has appeared again, and he is terribly worried. Lika confidently rushes forward, boldly throws herself into battle, and lets the beast feel the power of her swift electric attack. Her attack hits the monster, it writhes in pain, and she smiles and mockingly asks, well, does it feel good? The monster squeezes the soldiers with its tentacles and sternly warns, do not touch them, these tentacles drain all the strength from a person. Leka understood well that electricity could kill, so she instantly ordered everyone to move away. She knew the ice barrier would soon melt. Laker, looking forward intently, decisively declares that now she herself will use the sacred sword technique. The commander understands well. This step will take a lot of her strength and accelerate the decline of the sacred sword. But even so, her army obeys the order without hesitation. Laka apologizes to Gran, sincerely admitting that she behaved unfriendly as a mistress. Then she gathers all her strength and prepares to deliver the decisive blow. Leka gently whispers to the sword that there is no need to worry, she made her choice long ago, and thanks it for the bright, unforgettable battles they experienced together. She gasped, and at that very moment, a mighty power awakened within her, the divine eye of the Lord of Time. Finally, Lika decides to unleash the full might of her sacred artifact and releases its power to the fullest. She launches her most powerful technique, Electric Emperor, World Serpent, and pours all her strength directly onto the monster. After the attack, she, powerless, hung suspended in the air. She apologizes to her sword, realizing that everything is already over. Suddenly, a mysterious portal opens in the air. A hand reaches out from it, firmly gripping a hammer, and everyone around freezes in amazement, unable to believe what they see. She does not understand at all what is happening here and now, and he will appear beside her. Suddenly, the dragon Loevri appears and unleashes a series of powerful blows on the monster, like a storm itself. Will intently gazes at the defeated monster and thoughtfully says that before him is a true weapon. For his master, he is not just a guardian, but much more than an ordinary friend. He has become a true family to him. Carolina, with tears of happiness in her eyes, hugs Iceberg, her devoted friend whom she has waited for so long, holding him tightly and feeling the true joy of reunion. It pretends to be a monster and asks, does he rejoice in breaking a weapon that is priceless to someone. His face twisted with anger, and he hissed with hatred that he is incredibly furious right now. Lekka loudly calls out to Vil, warning him. The monster has already raised its tentacles and is about to attack. Lekka rushed to the tentacle, but at the same moment sharply warned, if it is cut, something completely unpredictable might happen. She was surprised for the first time she saw that, after her strike, the tentacle could not recover. Lekka looks at the teacher in awe. He not only repaired her sword, he made it much more perfect. The woman warns her friend, be careful, these tentacles are covered with a curse that drains life from all artifacts. Suddenly, the real body of the monster emerges before them. The hero saw with horror before him, a gigantic lion god looming over him with its fierce majesty. The brave team of heroes boldly rushes into battle with the terrible monster. Polo shouts, breaking off, there are too many enemies, everyone fall back. Vil activates his ability, ultra-dense body modification, and decisively says he will personally go out to meet the lion. He boldly summons a gigantic lion, gesturing to invite it to come even closer. We will easily block the strike of this monster's gigantic paw without any difficulty. He says that this technique momentarily transforms his cells, and then he gains superhuman strength. Lori says that this lion resembles her. It is also possessed by an evil spirit, and it suffers terribly because of it. On the lion's forehead, like a nightmare ruby, burns a terrible red stone. It immediately draws all eyes. The boy explains that the stone sits right in the lion's brain. If it is removed, the animal will die. Lekka understands. This is very similar to what happened to her own eye. A terrifying scene unfolded before him. The great lion god lets out a mighty roar, wild, full of rage. Will promise that very soon he would come to his aid and free him from suffering. He unleashes his most powerful techniques, destroying everything around, and then activates an amazing ability to regenerate, as if weaving a new order from the fragments of chaos. Vel did not hesitate. He immediately struck the monster with all his might. When the smoke cleared, the girls sighed with relief. Will was unharmed and uninjured. Will smiles kindly and calms the lion. Everything is fine, I destroyed that cursed eye, and then advises the lion to rest a little. Suddenly it turns out that this lion is actually a girl. Will cannot believe his eyes. He was sure that all this time he was talking to a boy. Will felt that the girl was alive. The deceitful stranger exhaled with relief and thanked him. Instead of killing her, he saved her life. She sincerely thanks him and flies up, all the way to the clouds, believing that their paths will cross again someday. Although the lioness girl was his rival, Will surprisingly realized, God turned out to be much closer and more real than he had always thought. But suddenly from the monster's fragments emerges the true enemy. He rages with anger and roars, forbidding such disrespect towards him. The real villain could not understand. Why was his sinister artifact destroyed and the lion god still alive? Finally, Will admitted, he left his hiding place. He had felt before that someone was watching him while he was hiding in the dungeon. The villain, stunned by how masterfully the city of Willenue was built, says he knows nothing about it. He only slightly modified the artifact's design. Will calmly says that this thing just plays with people for fun and is not worth repairing, and proudly calls himself Tsukimagami. Tsukimagami announces his grand plan. He wants to destroy all artifacts in the world, and no orders or prohibitions will stop him. But Will independently intervenes in the situation, takes on the responsibility to stop the enemy, and loudly promises to destroy him. Tsukimagami attacks, but the girl confidently stands before Vil and loudly and decisively declares that they will protect him, no matter what happens. And suddenly Vil shouted to them that they must not do that. If they try to stop the attack, the sky above them might fall. Vil realizes that there is no escape from a direct attack, so he decides to use his ability Iron Forest. The heroine could hardly believe that she managed to bypass the Iron Forest. A powerful explosion thundered, and since then the girls began to be called Vils. Sakumagami threw at the hero with a contemptuous smile that all his efforts were in vain, and proudly added that they, the gods, are unshakable, because no thing created by humans can harm them. Then the blacksmith put his golden hand into action. At that very moment, he rushed forward to the Tsukimagami, activating his special technique. The hero fervently dreamed of changing fate. He knew well. To defeat a god, one can only use a sacred weapon. I confidently connect with Mjolnir. The god responded grimly, threatening to shatter the blacksmith's hammer into fine dust. The hero bravely thrust the holy sword straight into the monster. When the sacred weapon touched Tsukimagami, unbearable pain passed through him, and fear engulfed his entire being. The creature, not believing its eyes, asked how Vil obtained the holy sword, for a hero can have only one sacred weapon, and also noted that perhaps Vil harbors some other mysterious secret. The young man, filled with unwavering confidence, confirmed the words of God. He explained that he actually has only one true sacred weapon, his hammer. Vil admitted that he himself created this sacred weapon. He personally forged the holy blade because only such a weapon could wound the god himself. The Duke and Mugami froze. They could not believe their eyes. Could this really be a fake? The hero realized that he would have to use something he truly does not like, and he was completely displeased with it. He tirelessly trained, creating copies again and again until he mastered the new skill to perfection. This creature could not believe its eyes. There were really so many, and they truly were endless. You will tell that in this cube silently are stored memories of the sacred weapon, the one once created by the former owners of the Golden Hand. The hero calmly explained that as long as he has a reserve of magic, he can create copies and temporarily summon them for help. Saying this, he instantly aimed all his weapons at the monster. They were walking straight towards Tsukimagami. The beastmen could hardly believe that all these fakes were actually sacred weapons. The girl began to list some of them, and suddenly recognized Gungnir and Aegis Excalibur. The dragon looked at the rain of forged smith blades, and ironically called it a true museum of sacred weapons. Let's say this is where it all ends. The weapon mercilessly destroyed the monster. Tsukimagami roared, "I cannot allow such an ending." The beast woman sharply shouted to the blacksmith, warning him about the danger lurking in the dungeon. The hero gathered such courage and directed the power of the dungeon straight against God himself, and the creature barely hung on the edge of life and death. Tsukimagami was stunned with amazement when he learned that the blacksmith even managed to recreate the dungeon. He will say that all these short-lived fakes vanish as soon as they appear. The hero apologizes to the monster and then delivers the final blow. Tsukimagami was defeated, but even before the final blow, he managed to threaten Hapasaya, saying that the house, endowed with sevenfold blessing, would surely overcome him, and the hero only turned away, not wanting to watch the god perish. The girls greeted Will warmly, smiling sincerely. Burrow trustingly offered food to the blacksmith, but Carolina immediately sharply forbade her to approach the hero. The one-eyed girl also defended her mentor, asking everyone to stay aside and confidently saying that she would take care of the hospitality for the teacher herself. Carolina resolutely objected. The fighter had not yet won. In response, she was told not to interfere, so Barrow addressed everyone with a request not to quarrel, and Carolina confidently replied that she would handle everything herself. Waking up, the boy asked the girls to stop and said that his magical power had already been restored so he could eat by himself. The girls persistently advised him to take a break and not exhaust himself in vain. Seeing that a small quarrel had started among the girls, he cautiously asked if they got along with each other or perhaps were not very friendly. Someone whispered to him that he had done everything right. Before him appeared the goddess Artemis herself. She came to make sure that Will was all right and personally asked how he was feeling. Artemis took the blacksmith by the hand. This was her way of showing support and care. She sincerely addressed the young man, asking him to agree to a thorough examination, because he was the most precious treasure of the entire kingdom to her. Lady Iceberg shook her head, and clear surprise was read in her gaze. She asked Her Majesty in confusion, since when did Will begin to belong to the Empire? The girl sighed and explained that Gapase was from the kingdom, and sincerely asked Artemis that the hero should not become the property of the Empire. Vil shook his head and objected to the girl. He already has a noble title granted to him by the Empire. The warrior woman could not believe that this was really happening. Her eyes filled with tears. Could it be that her beloved had now become part of the Empire? Now Vil was no longer the hero of the kingdom, and the girl felt deep longing and emptiness in her soul. Tears almost welled up in her eyes, but the boy gently calmed her and said, "Don't worry, everything will be fine." The warrior was promised that he would also take care of her. At first, the girl had no idea what the blacksmith was talking about. Carolina felt her face instantly flush. Her cheeks burning with shame. She felt very uncomfortable. Carolina was so confused that she immediately rushed out of the room to get some fresh air and calm down. Vil noticed Artemis and asked why she was so cheerful. He thought maybe it was because they had managed to handle the sacred sword. But the girls just looked at each other, clearly not understanding what he was talking about. Her Majesty declared that Vil, who saved the Empire from an unprecedented threat, cannot be transferred to another state from now on. He is a great hero of the Empire. The young man was surprised to notice that the famous hero was speaking to him very loudly, and Lake replied that he was not shouting at all. The girl confessed. If the teacher had not intervened then, the Empire would no longer have survived. That Tsukimagami had become significantly stronger. The girls bowed low before the hero and sincerely, from the bottom of their hearts, said that they were very grateful to him. The young man was stunned in his mind. This scene looked completely different. Will modestly said, "I did nothing extraordinary." The hero did not hide his joy. Everything turned out extremely well. both for him and for this Tsukimagami. He understood this sacred weapon was truly incredibly powerful, and he himself had no special abilities. All the girls looked at him in surprise and laughed. He stubbornly and consistently rejected all their compliments, so they joked among themselves that the hero was truly unconventional and a bit strange. Sarakla was forcefully driven out of the house, loudly shouting at her, "Get out of here." She knocked on the door with all her might, loudly begging to be let in and given another chance. The girl, with tears in her eyes, confessed that she could rely on no one else, and sincerely begged everyone for help. Instead, they simply handed her a newspaper with an open page. Saraku was shown a newspaper article. It trembled, as it was written that the trading company Hassan had almost gone bankrupt. They laughed, saying that if they had tried to do forgeries, they would have gone bankrupt long ago. She was ordered to go, but she did not lose her composure. She asked once more to wait a little. Siracle barely held back tears, telling that the masters do not come to them at all, and because of this no one buys their goods. With sadness on her face, the girl said that she could no longer help. Circle lowered her hands in helplessness, feeling that she had reached the last limit and had nowhere else to fall. There was still one hope left, and the girl realized that now she would have to ask for help from her ex-boyfriend. She picked up the newspaper, the very one that was thrown out of the house, along with her. The crowd was slowly flowing through the city streets, but among the gray mass one man stood out. Everything was already decided, and the burden fell on his shoulders, while in the other hand he held some unusual thing. The boy involuntarily smiled, watching people walking down the street. In his mind, he had already marked them as potential clients, and he was amazed at how many people had gathered here. He stood in the middle of the road and asked passers-by to stay, loudly announced to everyone around that he had brought what they had been waiting for so long. The warrior and the wizard stopped side by side, hoping to find some valuable thing nearby. Set with Joy noticed this time they were truly lucky. All those types of weapons that he once forged with his own hands gathered in the sword. From the entire arsenal, people instantly recognized Excalibur, Aegis, and Bavagea. The smiling blacksmith gladly began to tell that these items are true legends, and each of them costs only 1,000 gold coins. The warrior froze in amazement, watching how the legendary Excalibur was sold for only 1,000 gold coins. He could not believe it. Seaton thought that buyers would immediately rush for this weapon, although in reality they were just ordinary stones that he had picked up right on the road. The young man passionately dreamed of great wealth, to create a good and happy life together with Soraka. The mage created a magical crystal so that the warrior could check if his sword was genuine. The warrior felt that his first spell did not suit Excalibur, but still could not resist the desire to test it in battle. Seaton was not against it. The sword pierced the crystal through and through. The warrior could not contain his surprise. The crystal shattered into small fragments, and in its place remained a smooth stripe from the sword. Seaton was glowing with delight as he looked at his subject. He laughed loudly, but there was a nervous note in that laughter as if he was about to lose control. Seeing the result, people immediately rushed to the pile of weapons. They were surprised by both the prices and the wide selection. So everyone wanted to buy at least something, and the blacksmith only added fuel to the fire, talking about each sword as if it were legendary weaponry, further inciting the crowd. Suddenly everyone of blacksmith and the people around fixed their gazes on the warrior. Seaton advised him not to rush and said that if the warrior truly wished to obtain this Excalibur, then 1,000 gold coins would be enough. But the warrior did not agree immediately. After the strike, the warrior raised his sword, the blade cracked, and he immediately said it was a fake. He didn't even consider paying for such a weapon. They whispered that the legendary Excalibur cuts through even an icy icicle as easily as paper, and yet does not break an iota. Finally, people realized all those things they saw were just fakes. Koval scolded the boy for his words and coldly reminded him, even the strongest tile can crack over time. But the warrior objected. If the sword were truly legendary, its power would be felt immediately upon taking it in hand, but nothing of the sort happened with this sword. The warrior threw the sword and it instantly shattered into tiny pieces, and then the man finally admitted that it was only a copy. He immediately noticed the blacksmith had never seen this legendary weapon with his own eyes. People in the crowd loudly shouted that Set was not a real master and angrily warned him, "Don't you dare deceive them." The blacksmith gathered his courage and boldly stepped out to the people. He began convincingly explaining to them that this was not a fake at all, but a genuine item. The young man admitted that he works as a master at Hassan's company and possesses special skills. People instantly recognized the name of Hassan's company, and a memory immediately surfaced. It was exactly today that the newspaper wrote about the problems of this firm. People loudly protested, saying that the company, Hassan Trading, sells counterfeits, and swore never to buy anything from this store again. They were called swindlers. Seton stubbornly tried to prove to everyone and himself that it was not so. He activated the artifact. The young man blurted out angrily, "My talent is just fine." Suddenly, Surakal appeared before Evryonis angrily shouted at Seton and asked indignantly, "What are you doing here?" The boy immediately recognized this girl. She got angry and started shouting, reproaching him. How could he do that? He loudly declared that he wanted only one thing: to save Hassan's company. Surakal sharply called him a fool and sternly ordered him to stop acting thoughtlessly. She handed him a newspaper clipping and said there was only one way to fix everything. She turned to the boy with a plea: return Will to the kingdom. She suggested they go together and sincerely apologize to Will. Then she showed a newspaper. It had an article about the hero who saved the empire, Will Craft. But instead, he simply pushed the girl away along with the newspaper. Surakal writhed unbearably from the severe pain and screamed. The girl watched the boy intently, trying to figure out what he was occupied with. She cautiously reminded him that she was currently pregnant by him. Vila repeated this word several times and asked what it meant. He shouted, "I can't take this anymore." The girl did not understand at all what her beloved was talking about. His words seemed to her complete nonsense, and she only tried to convey a simple thought: if he returns, everything will be as before. Vila's brother loudly exclaimed that he would rather die than ask him for forgiveness. The thought that his brother had become a great hero did not give him peace. It annoyed him that he himself understood nothing about the legendary weapon, and this curse became a heavy burden for him. The boy moved closer to his girl and quietly asked what was troubling her, since he was now nearby. Surakal suddenly struck the blacksmith on the cheek, and he jumped up in surprise. She sharply blurted out that she absolutely disliked everything. Suddenly memories surfaced in Seton. The girl, grandfather, and father always repeated the same thing: he had no talent at all. The young man froze in surprise. He could hardly believe what he had just heard. He did not expect such sincerity from his girl at all. Hearing those words, Surakal finally sighed with relief. She could no longer stay in the square and rushed away. The boy crawled after her, begging on his knees not to leave him. She suddenly stopped and, with a voice full of determination, said that Seton must stay here. The girl firmly said that she would come to him herself and ask for forgiveness. The boy tried to stop the girl, but in vain. Nothing worked out. He kept thinking about talent and blamed himself for not having it. Seton felt hopeless. He activated the artifact, and his hand instantly ignited with bright energy. Everyone around fell silent and watched carefully what had happened. People quickly realized the danger and immediately ordered to call the knights. The blacksmith laughed sinisterly and coldly said that he agreed to return his brother. Seton decisively decided to take all of Vilist's abilities for himself. The train rushed along the tracks with a whistle, and inside its cars sat people, each with their own thoughts and stories. Surakal, lost in thought, recalled Vilu. In the train carriage, a girl became upset because of a broken doll and complained to her mother. The woman nearby quietly pondered how to help, as there was neither a needle nor thread at hand to fix the toy. One of the passengers directly stated, "Sewing supplies are actually not needed here at all." The man with golden hands gently restored the broken doll. He explained that when something breaks, it should not be thrown away. It's better to take it and fix it. Surakal learned to use this method. The doll has already been fixed. The girl asked her doll rescuer if he was a wizard, and the doll only smiled and calmly replied that he was not a wizard. The girl thought, probably he is a toy maker. At her guess, he smiled and said that indeed one could say that about him. The girl's mother sincerely thanked the craftsman for his support. The man warmly smiled in response and said it was a trifle, they should not worry. He said he could not stand aside when he sees someone else's pain and always runs to help those who get into trouble. Soraku suddenly became alert. She approached the stranger and asked if he was the same famous blacksmith everyone was talking about. She looked at the craftsman's hand and decided, this really is his famous golden hand. The man instantly became alert. The girl, recalling that Vil had a special power hidden in his right hand, became interested. Does this man have the same ability? Surakal shyly apologized for his inappropriate question. With sadness in her voice, she asks if this man will ever be able to become an employee of her company. The stranger only laughed in response. He admitted that he was already familiar with the Hassan company and knew well about its difficult situation. The girl looked at the man in surprise, not understanding how he knew her name. She instantly became wary. The mentor sincerely apologized to the girl, speaking to her softly and kindly, and frankly said that he did not intend to join any organization. The man said that he was already leaving. He was going to create something new. The girl suddenly noticed this stranger looked amazingly like Vil. She understood the owner. Surakal confessed that she was expecting a child, could not help in any way, and sincerely apologized. The The man said that a child is the most special thing of all that people have ever created, and for him, there was nothing more interesting than a person who is just beginning their life. The word creation touched the girl right in the heart. The master allowed the girl to choose any item that would please her. The man explained that if he ate it, he would feel better inside, but he emphasized, even then he would not be able to simply turn away from someone else's sorrow. After careful examination and tests, it became clear. The hero had sustained truly severe injuries. At first the girl hesitated, but eventually she dared to taste the candy that was given to her. Kola felt as if she had suddenly found herself in another world so beautiful that it took her breath away. The girl froze in thought, trying to understand what had just happened. She was overwhelmed with happiness, and tears appeared in her eyes from strong emotions. The mentor smiled contentedly. The result satisfied him. Surakal was filled with peace and joy, enjoying every moment. The man said it was time for him to leave, said goodbye, and left the company. The passenger tried to convey to the stranger that this train stops only in the empire's capital, and only at the last station of the route. The master calmly replied that everything was fine, and sincerely thanked the woman for her care. The man, smiling mysteriously, advised the girls to watch their doll carefully. The friends said goodbye, exchanging warm words and hugging. The girl's mother noticed that this man was a truly good person. A sudden powerful explosion covered the girl and her mother, knocking them to the ground. Surakal was so deep in thought that she paid no attention to what was happening around her. She did not even notice the explosion, but its force still affected her. The explosion sounded right on the track where the train was passing. The train crashed and derailed. It is necessary to find a way to quickly convey information about the people to everyone. The entire train lay overturned on its side. Bodies of the dead scattered around. The scale of the accident took one's breath away. The master behaved as if he had lost his mind, quietly whistling some song. For him, this terrible disaster was true art, and he watched his creation with pleasure. The stranger laughed a cold laugh and said that this tragedy was the result of the actions of the family of 7 lucky ones. The boy looked as if he had lost self-control. The winged creature swiftly flew up to the recently stopped train. That was exactly the dragon that Will, together with his friends, invented in their stories. Seeing how enormous the disaster had become, he froze in place, paralyzed by shock. The young man sighed heavily and whispered that everything that was happening was a real horror. Barrow anxiously asked what they should do next and whether it would be better to wait for rescuers from the Empire, while Raleigh decisively suggested not wasting time and immediately carrying out the wounded. Will asked them to wait a little. He still hadn't fully understood what was happening. The dragon warned, if they didn't hurry, there would be more victims. The blacksmith was finally tired of waiting. He decided to act immediately, activated his golden hand, and directed its power straight at the train. He quickly grasped the scale of the damage. Someone's heart had stopped at the accident site, another's internal organs were severely damaged, another person turned out to be pregnant, and someone had a brain hemorrhage. Careful examination revealed a bitter truth. His wounds were much more severe than they seemed. He raises his hammer. From it bursts a healing power that instantly and completely restores all strength. The train passengers gradually calmed down, and the usual peace reigned around again. Barrow always looked at that man with admiration. He could solve any problem on the first try. But the behavior of the beast woman filled the boy with anxiety and surprise. The hero felt joy. He realized he had succeeded, as his level had increased. But most of all, he was warmed by the sincere smiles of those he had saved for him. This was a true reward, far more valuable than any promotion or honorary title. Suddenly someone recognized him and loudly shouted his name. It was Surakal, who approached the hero sitting on the dragon's back and spoke to him. The young man realized who was standing before him. Surprise blossomed on his face, and hope instantly flared in her eyes in response. Suddenly she became aware of feeling her knees. The girl sincerely apologized to him, openly confessed her guilt before the hero, and truly looked upset and remorseful. She was sobbing, and the dragon was already disappearing into the distant sky, farther and farther from them, when suddenly Will approached Surakal and quietly called her. He extended his hand, smiling warmly, and offered her to stand up. Kuznets said that all train passengers must be carefully examined at the city's main hospital, and the girl, shocked by this news, still could not hold back tears. Will explained, Surakal would be sent to the hospital first. She was currently pregnant. He gently seated her and tenderly cared for her. She again asked the hero for forgiveness, sincerely admitting her mistake and that she had acted wrongly. She crawled on the ground, stumbling and asking for forgiveness, but suddenly fainted completely. The hero could not hide his admiration. Passengers were seated on the backs of dragons. Women and children were sent first, and the rest were instructed to wait until the Imperial Rescue Squad arrived. The dragon soared into the sky, and swiftly disappeared beyond the horizon. The hero walked beside him and noticed that he looked worried. After that, he decided to inspect the train from beginning to end. The boys carefully studied the rails and examined the train wheels. Villafata looked a bit strange, but the man noticed that the green road was quiet and calm. Nothing aroused suspicion, so he suspected that the accident was deliberately arranged. The blacksmith could not shake the feeling. Magic was involved here. Burrow stood on guard. The hero suddenly became alert, as if he noticed something invisible. The girl sensed his change, not understanding the reason, and asked in surprise what had happened. He noticed smoke rising from one of the compartments. Will asked Burrow if she had ever seen black fog on the train, and the girl replied that she had noticed nothing of the sort. This meant that only the hero saw the fog when he noticed the black fog crawling forward. He followed without hesitation. Burrow and Will raised their heads and looked up, not taking their eyes off the foggy strip stretching far ahead. Black fog was already closing in on the dragon carrying the fugitives. Those who had recently been train passengers were now flying on its back, clinging tightly to avoid being blown away by the fierce wind stirred up by the swift flight of the wondrous creature. The passenger in the wheelchair clutched a doll in her hands, entrusted to her by a stranger with mysterious eyes, and from that doll, a familiar black fog slowly began to spread. Suddenly, Vilu was overwhelmed by an anxious premonition. He felt that he and Horo urgently needed to return to the imperial capital, and without wasting a second, they jumped up and rushed at full speed. The boys confidently moved forward, applying their blacksmith skills. His guesses were indeed confirmed. Black fog slowly crept up to the hospital, where they treated people injured in the train. Their appearance will awaken horror and stop her. The girl noticed that the teleportation crystal works insanely fast. In an instant, they found themselves inside the building. It turned out that even those who lay next to Koro in the hospital did not notice any fog at all. Koval quickly climbed the stairs. Sariko recognized him but still could not understand why he appeared here. He approached the room from which black smoke was pouring out. The hero, without hesitation, grabbed the handle and opened the door wide. Thick, dark smoke instantly covered the entire room, and it smelled of anxiety. True horror seized the young Manhai's heart pounded wildly. His breathing became ragged, and he, not believing what was happening, froze for a moment in fear. The girl, with deep sorrow, sat on the edge of her mother's bed. Black ribbons stretched from her, wrapping around the motionless woman. 2 flowers stood on the windowsill, their appearance seeming to suggest that someone present had already passed into another world. Black shackles almost completely wrapped around the woman, squeezing her as if in iron vice. The girl suddenly froze mid-word, and barely whispered that her mother no longer showed signs of life. Horror rushed to the girl, his heart tightening with anxiety. Was she all right? But Will immediately told him not to come closer. He sharply pointed a finger at the thing the girl was holding in her hands. From this crack burst out black chains and thick dark fog. It was just some cursed doll. As soon as you look, it immediately becomes clear. This doll is actually a cursed object. He suddenly realized. This curse is from the same group as the curse of the lion gods, so it brings misfortune to everyone who is nearby. The hero turned to the girl and politely asked, "Could you give me your doll for a little while?" The girl firmly declared that she would not give it up under any circumstances. The boy wanted her trust so much that he called himself the doctor of her dolls. The girl was amazed when she heard that he was also a doll doctor, but the master was wary of her words. There was something unclear about the "also," as if a secret was hidden behind it. The young man silently looked at the doll and felt that it was in pain in such a condition. He addressed the girl once again and gently offered to help fix her toy. The little girl shyly extended her item, holding it as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. Villa exploded with rage upon learning that someone had turned the doll, which meant so much to the child, into a cursed object. Had he really already begun to remove the curse? For Kovali, it seemed like a real betrayal. He became angry and outraged, and in a burst of emotion, he wanted to break the doll and make a new one. The curse finally dissipated, and the toy came to life again, turning into a magical doll. The girl's mother finally came to her senses. On the windowsill, a withered flower suddenly bloomed again, as if a sign that she had fully recovered. The girl rushed to her mother, who was confused and could not understand what had happened to her daughter. She gestured to her mother toward the heroes. They handed the toy to the girl. He called it the dry doll and said that from now on it would bring luck to everyone nearby. Goro froze in surprise. The doll's hair suddenly began to glow. The girl joyfully told her mother that this boy had fixed her broken toy. The hero, without taking his eyes off, asked the woman if anyone else had touched this doll. The girl's mother told with a smile that on the magical train the doll's head came off, but they managed to fix everything. The girl said that it was a good boy who hid his face under bandages. Let's imagine for a moment what this man in the mask could have looked like to us. He sincerely thanked the girl for being frank with him. The woman disagreed and decisively said that the hero should be thanked, but he only smiled and remarked that it was the doll who dealt with the illness, not himself. The mother and daughter were stunned with surprise, momentarily forgot everything around them. The doll quietly confessed she was healed by Will, a true master puppeteer. The girl could not contain her joy when she heard her doll speak, and the mother of Malika only withdrew in surprise and was a little frightened. And the blacksmith was the most surprised. He could hardly believe what had happened. The toy said that it was created by a master, and this master turned out to be an extraordinarily strange man. Hora blossomed with admiration when her mentor brought the doll to life for her. It was a true miracle. The hero admitted that he did not do it out of malice, only turned the toy's curse into something good, into a blessing. Sirikal stared at this miracle and could not believe her eyes right before her. A person came back to life, and the doll suddenly came alive. At that moment she clearly felt some divine power had intervened here. The girl heard someone calling. It was the same boy she had helped with his leg. He was joyfully showing his mother that he could already move his leg, and Sir Kala was also sincerely surprised by this news. True miracles began in the hospital. Someone's heart pain suddenly disappeared, someone unexpectedly began to see again and finally recognized familiar faces, and one patient, who was predicted only 3 months to live, is already preparing for discharge because his condition has noticeably improved. The man with the red cross and the holy book froze at the true miracle and exclaimed that probably God himself had appeared on earth. Sirikal finally understood. All those amazing healings happened thanks to the doll created by Willem and her extraordinary gift, and now the girl truly appreciated how talented this blacksmith was. Sadness gripped her heart when she realized what she had lost. The doll entertained the children with a real performance and even showed how well it could dance. Sirikal finally felt that with all her heart she longed to bring Will back into her life and be with him again. The doll was incredibly cute, and the children watched with delight as the toy seemed to come alive right before their eyes. But suddenly the girl called the owner for him. It was a complete surprise, and at that moment the beast man became alert, ready to intervene if something went wrong. Sirikal tearfully told that she had been searching for Willem for a long time, and that she had very important news for him that she could not fail to deliver. Kor was simply extremely dissatisfied with what had happened. Kovalenko apologized to the girl, explaining that he was currently busy and was just about to go somewhere. Sirikal spoke again, sincerely apologizing for having driven him away last time. She said that after Will left, everything went sharply downhill at Hassan's, and Seaton himself could no longer keep up with all the orders. The girl did not even want to think that the business they had built together so long and persistently could suddenly just fall apart like that. The boy, however, grew increasingly irritated with every remark from his old friend. Sirikal said that if she appeared again, the client would definitely return to her, and she once again asked the hero to come back to her. The boy decisively brushed off her proposal. She did not hide her surprise at his words. She was convinced that he was still angry with her. Almost losing hope, the girl decided to tease him a little. She confessed her feelings but immediately told him about her betrayal, then asked if he was really offended by her. Horo could no longer endure, exploded with anger. The werewolf surrounded Sirikal and shouted loudly that she was no longer going to tolerate this. Horo snapped at the shout. First this girl betrayed Master Will, and now she is even asking him to return. She sternly ordered her to stop mocking like that. Soraka could not understand why this werewolf was here. She felt creepy at the very thought that Horror might be a girl from another company. To tease her, she called that firm some strange office. In response to Zeverina's humiliation, the girl flared up and declared that she herself would get the chance to save her life. Goro tirelessly convinced everyone that only she knew her master best. Rage surged over Cerebral. She did not believe that the blacksmith had a new girl, and offended, immediately accused him of betrayal. The beast woman flared up with anger and shouted that the real traitor was Hassan, because he was the one who left their town. Sirikal froze in place, not stepping back a single step. Horo said that the master had a serious task and was not in the mood to talk to women now, so Vil decided not to interfere in their conversation. Sirikal again dropped to her knees, bound by despair. In tears, she begged Vil to stay and return, sincerely confessed that she had no strength to change anything, and asked the blacksmith if he would worry if his son suddenly disappeared. The blacksmith only sighed, and his words fell like a heavy stone. It was already too late to fix anything. The girl focused intently on catching every word of the master. He remembered how Sirikal herself always called Hassan her companion. So all the girl's achievements were solely her own merit. He had nothing to do with it. All problems must be solved by Cyril herself. Will firmly said that everything between him and that girl was already in the past. Kolo could not hold back tears sobbing. She reproached herself for her recklessness and in despair, begged forgiveness from Will, from Satan, and even from the unborn child, not understanding herself to whom she owed the most. Sadness descended upon her, and she realized everything remained in the past. Suddenly something strange happened to the girl. Her belly quickly swelled as if it was enveloped by a mysterious, pulsating glow. The mother and the girl froze in the room, anxiously looking around, not understanding at all what had happened. Cyril burst out screaming, confessing that she was terribly hurt. The sphere almost completely enveloped the girl. The blacksmith noticed how black smoke began to slowly seep from that sphere. We will ask Cyril if she had met someone who hid his face under a cloth. The girl sobbed barely audibly, frozen in her stupor. Quietly and uncertainly she spoke, recalling how this man had treated her to a sweet lollipop on the magical train. The master learned that this mysterious stranger had committed another terrible crime. A bright symbol suddenly flared above the ball. It was as if it turned into a portal. Suddenly, a portal burst out of Cyril's stomach. Someone began to emerge from it. A baby came out of the portal. It was unusually large. He fell to the floor and hit his head painfully. Tears welled up, and he crawled toward the boys. The baby cried bitterly, and despite its tiny size, it seemed very weak and completely defenseless. Cyril looked incredibly attractive. The baby confusedly began to look for his mother and approached the children, who looked frightened. The man instantly rushed to help the woman and her daughter. They simultaneously jumped back so the baby wouldn't touch them, and he immediately started crying loudly, announcing his distress. The boys managed to retreat to a safe distance. The mother and daughter survived alive and unharmed. They ran outside, loudly calling for help and telling that a monster appeared in the hospital, so adventurers must be called immediately. Goro, together with Will, enter the same room, and the baby starts crying again. Fear gripped Cyril. She could not believe her eyes. Her child was already born, although the time of birth had not yet come. For a moment the girl was confused. The baby saw the girl, its eyes lit up with joy, and it crawled to her, happily exclaiming, "Mom." Cyril exploded with a scream, called him a monster, and began waving her hands right in front of him. The child became even more upset and even more offended. The child cried so loudly that its voice seemed like a powerful wave that knocked other children off their feet. The rumble was so strong that the vase with flowers fell and broke, and a crack appeared in the window. Let's tell what is the magic of sound. He understood it was just crying, not some spell, but the magical energy in the air was so strong that he began to doubt his own guesses. Horo still could not understand what this amazing power really hides. The blacksmith realized that all these strange magical events began precisely because of the curse of the man who pretended to be someone else. Cyril suddenly felt how the candy that an unknown man had given her came alive in her memory. The baby did not stop. He cried loudly and called for his mother because he was very hungry. Meanwhile, let's see what happened to the girl. He noticed that no matter who the parents were, their child was not to blame for anything. The master quietly explained that the true mother of this child was only Cyril. The girl thoughtfully tried to understand what exactly he was talking about. It seemed the baby was completely broken by sadness. The girl quietly agreed. The baby was not to blame for anything and slowly crawled towards the child. Cyril gently touched the child to comfort him and let him feel her care. She asked him for forgiveness, although she herself was the one who gave him life. The baby gradually calmed down. When he realized that Cyril was his mother, he immediately threw himself into her arms, sincerely not hiding his feelings. Horo and Vil were initially terribly worried about the girl, but when they saw that she was fine, they finally breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly, adventurers ran up. The locals warned them about the danger, so now they were chasing the amphibian monster. They commanded everyone to attack and unleashed magic directly at the infant. The spells flew past the mage and the beast woman, aiming straight at the infant. Cyril suddenly runs up to the infant at the last moment. She became a shield for the child, covering her with her body from danger. The spells immediately hit the girl directly. Suddenly, she collapsed to the floor. Determination and despair suddenly overwhelmed them both. They didn't even have time to understand what had happened. The child saw with his own eyes what had happened to his mother. Sadness gripped him again, and he couldn't hold back. He cried. The adventurers looked at each other in surprise. No one could understand what was going on. The infant exploded again with a powerful sound, this time even stronger, and directed it straight at the mages who were approaching closer. A blinding magical explosion struck everyone present, and in an instant erased the room. Suddenly, an icon flashed before the eyes, indicating the recovery skill. It was Will who raised the hammer and began working with it. The adventurers still could not comprehend what was happening here. Everything in the room was in its place, clean and orderly, and only the white fog slowly spreading around revealed that something had changed. The men, still stunned, whispered about what had happened because the familiar, usual atmosphere had returned around them. Well then, let's start teasing them. The actions of the adventurers greatly angered him. The teacher sharply raised his voice and sternly asked why they were bothering the child. Fear deprived the adventurers of words. They silently turned around and rushed away. Koro noticed that these guys behaved extremely rudely, and at the same time did not even notice how Surakal had fully recovered. Not a scratch, and her clothes looked as if newly bought. The girl came to and was surprised to feel that the pain was gone. Seeing Will, she immediately decided. He had decided everything again. She noticed the child. She already looked as usual. The baby was joyfully crying and calling for his mother. She could not believe her eyes. Her heart was filled with happiness when she saw that the infant had started to look like an ordinary child. Inside the child smoldered a tiny spark of magical power. The blacksmith firmly believed the day would come when the baby could finally use it. The master and Hora were already leaving, but Sirikal noticed this and rushed after them, begging them to wait. The girl sincerely thanked Will from the bottom of her heart for saving her child. The teacher said sadly that he did it not at all for Sirakal's sake. The guys had already left. The girl cried again and, wiping her tears, apologized to her former friend. She was consumed by shame for how she had behaved, but at the same time she was infinitely grateful to Will for saving the child. There was no time to talk for long. The baby called Siracal, and she instantly got distracted by him. The girl desperately wanted to return home as soon as possible, because she knew that Father Setsun was already waiting for them. But when they arrived, no one met them. The guards immediately took him into custody and locked him in the royal capital prison, where he was to wait for orders on what to do with bail. Seton became worried and turned to the false mentor. He persistently convinced him that he really had talent. The cellmate asked the newcomer to behave more quietly and not make noise. The stranger noticed what an unpleasant sight it was. The boy was sincerely trying, but everyone ignored him. Only Set did not leave him without attention. He called out to the master, asking to give him something stronger, and insisted that he wanted real talent. The teacher objected. He had already given him the strongest weapon, but Seton still craved more. The young man saw that everyone around began to mock him, and this frightened him greatly. A real despair flared up in his soul. Then the master calmly declared, "I will simply take everyone's hands." He carefully touched Horn's distorted, unusual hand. The cellmate could no longer endure seeing the bullying of the newcomer. He decided to call the knights for help. Suddenly, a loud explosion sounded in the prison. The boy's hand distorted even more. He shouted loudly that he would take all the hands for himself and leave none to anyone. The teacher said that this was exactly Seton's talent, and he really wanted the boy to show all his skills. The city was engulfed in chaos. Frightened people rushed in all directions, trying to escape from Seton, who was destroying everything in his path. The blacksmith wildly liked his new power. Now he could crush buildings as easily as if they were made of ordinary wet paper. The warrior on the square suddenly commanded him, "Stop." The warrior instantly felt, Seton is only pretending to be a true master. He launched a chopping strike technique, but suddenly Seton used his new hand, and the warrior froze in surprise. The self-proclaimed master, like a storm, easily dealt with everyone who tried to attack him. The young man grabbed their hands, and at that moment people screamed. Their strength instantly disappeared, and a burning pain ran through their bodies. Smiling, he told them that from now on their hands were only his. Suddenly, a warrior woman flew out of the bushes and instantly attacked the boy. She instantly drew a sword and struck lightning fast. Finally, the girl managed to touch the blacksmith. She cut off several hands, and this stunned Seton. He could not even imagine that this could happen. The girl confidently shouted, "My duty is to protect this city." She said it as if throwing down a challenge. She leads the highest level guild S-class. Seton just laughed in response. At first, the girl understood nothing at all, but suddenly noticed her hand disappeared right before her eyes. At first, the guildmaster was left without both hands, and then the blacksmith's hand completely engulfed her. The boy shouted loudly that he was the one who ate her hands. He enjoyed feeling that even an S-rank master now worked for him. The whole city turned into complete ruins. Under the rubble of the destroyed building, a little girl was trapped, and a woman, seeing this, instantly rushed to save her and called people for help with all her might. Suddenly, a stranger approached them. As could be expected, Seton asked the woman to step back and, full of determination, confidently declared that he would save the girl himself. The woman shouted loudly, ordering the monster not to come closer and to stay away from them. The man remarked that for such an insignificant woman, her words sounded too cold. The message lit up on the screen. and at that very moment it became clear there was no point in living any longer. Suddenly, a mysterious vortex appeared before Set. He instantly paid attention to it. Having left there, we immediately rushed to that woman. He reported that the girl had already recovered, so they needed to flee immediately. The woman thanked him from the bottom of her heart. The many-armed monster instantly recognized. Standing before him was his older brother. We were met indifferently, no warmth, no joy. The hero asked in surprise, did Seaton really manage to do all this right here in the city? He revealed a broad smile and confidently confirmed it. The creature proudly said that this was the best creation of all she had ever made. With relief, he whispered that he no longer felt like a useless younger brother. Wheelcraft activated his golden hand. The master looked intently at his brothers and firmly assured them that he would defeat Seaton and make him sincerely apologize. Will emphasized that this was his responsibility as the elder. Suddenly, a man with many hands rushed at the blacksmith, shouting that he was worthless and completely powerless. Then Vil contacted the divine hammer Mjolnir, and at that very moment rushed to attack his brother. The hero activated the powerful melting skill, but suddenly one of Seaton's hands sharply struck him in the face, and from the surprise he lost balance, had to stop the attack and fell to the ground. We looked at that hand, its golden shine had already faded. The monster laughed mockingly, convinced that it had already won. The blacksmith realized with horror what had happened to his brother. Seaton had cast a curse that takes away people's talents, and to make sure of this, he turned to the many-handed one. Seaton confirmed that Vil told the truth. His famous golden hand now belonged to him. The blacksmith suddenly realized that his brother had also met the man who was hiding under a disguise. The teacher explained that Seaton had become an unhappy spirit doomed to be near the cursed artifact, in which 7 different fortunes were gathered. The younger brother waved off Vil's words and rudely ordered him to be silent, while meanwhile Seaton, consumed by hatred, dreamed of killing the blacksmith. The younger brother struck his mentor with such force that Vil did not have time to dodge and was thrown backward. He tore downward, as if a whirlpool caught him and threw him upside down above the water surface. Set, with a bright smile on his face, mocked him and asked if the blacksmith would really dare to fight, having only his famous golden hand. Vil pondered over the missing mark, and the monster mocked the blacksmith still had not learned to use the golden hand, and it showed that here it was stronger. I set a trap and now I sit, holding my breath, waiting for the golden hand to work. Walden sat silently, carefully catching every word, as armed men whispered that their master would destroy himself with his own power. Seaton began continuously stamping forgeries one after another. But nothing happened. The monster stood in despair. Nothing was happening. The divine artifacts did not appear, and it did not understand at all what was going on. We will tell him to his face. He never understood how what he created with his own hands works. The blacksmith noted, having skill is one thing, but knowing how to use it properly is quite another. Seaton got angry that he was not told this earlier. He approached the mentor and sharply asked if it was true that he only had skills and nothing more. The hero realized with bitter sadness, abilities are like tools. If you don't learn to use them skillfully, they will bring no benefit. Will said that even if Seton could take others' abilities, he did not know how to use them. He compared it to a precious thing tightly held in your hand but not understanding why you need it. Little girl with tiny hands angrily shouted, demanding that he finally be quiet. Set loudly screamed that he would wipe everything around, and that would be the end of it. Will strictly ordered his younger brother, stop immediately. He shouted that he did not want to bother with any difficulties, and then turned the power to full, ready to destroy everything around. His hand rose up by itself, as if it did not obey his will. Suddenly, Seaton felt that his hand was not obeying at all. He realized this destruction would not stop. The boy screamed in fear. He did not understand what had happened and what was going on around. They whispered that this destructive technique had extraordinary power, so it could only be used partially. The hero sharply warned his brother, if you do not step back, it could mean death for you. But Sim warned him, do not get cocky. He said this with desperate determination. He would never allow himself to lose to Will and was even ready to sacrifice his life for this victory. The main hero rushed to him, hoping to dissuade and make him come to his senses. Set could not stand it and exploded. At any cost he would take revenge and kill the blacksmith. Will shouted and begged the many-armed one to stop. He only wanted to protect himself. Suddenly, the stone hand began to crumble and break into pieces. Bill was visited by his friends. It not only brought relief, it became a true salvation for him. Ask what exactly came. The teacher's friends are already ready prepared to stand up for his defense. Goro apologized to the blacksmith for making him wait. Noticing the wound on his master's wrist, she immediately began to treat it. The hero smiled and reminded that he had asked the girls to stay in the Empire and wait for him. The girl with an open heart whispered that he saved their lives, and now it was their turn to thank him. Everyone without hesitation agreed with the words of the beast woman. The man smiled and said that her response really helped them. He turned to his friends and with a sincere voice, asked for help, said that he really hoped for their support, and asked to delay the enemy to buy him some time. Paralina said she was ready to give her life for her master. I also added that the teacher's personality simply impresses with its depth. The boy decisively rushes into attack and shouts the name Will at the top of his voice. Laka releases her power, and dazzling lightning flashes ignite at her will. Carolina put the power of icebergs into action. The beastman suddenly jumped forward, swooping down from above. Use the crescent technique. The hero remembered that although he did not have the skills of a master, he still had his grandfather's hammer, and he pondered how truly unique his talent really was. We still clearly remember how in childhood he discovered 5 strange abilities. The first, he made others obey his will. The second, he closely watched every movement around. The third, he could restore anything as if rewinding time. The fourth, he had the power to smash everything that stood in his way. And the fifth, he created endless forgeries. Grandfather said to him with a bitter smile that all these abilities actually belonged to other masters. The golden hand should initially have only one truly special power. The boy suddenly recalled how his grandfather could melt metal incredibly skillfully. Did you manage to snatch the hammer from the boy? Grandpa Crab told the hero, his abilities are unique, no one else has such power. He imagined that this might be an unknown superpower. Perhaps when the boy reaches a certain skill level, this special power will awaken in his soul. He remembered how his grandfather told him, the moment will come and your unique power will awaken. After these words, the hero approached his grandfather and asked him to reveal the secret mighty gift hidden in the hammer. The blacksmith put his incredibly powerful skill into action, ultra-fast remelting. Suddenly he realized, even without the golden hand of deeds, he would still be able to create his divine artifact with his own hands. The powers awakened, and Vil now definitely knew what to do next. He personally crafted a new divine artifact, using his grandfather's unique knowledge and skill in the art of special smelting. The dragon instantly noticed a flash of magic bursting from the wound on Vil's hand. The hero approached Roll and, with hope in his voice, asked to be taught his skills. The dragon said it was a trifle for her, and asked with interest what plans her master had. He quietly confessed. 5 skills were taken from him at once, but that was only the beginning of his problems. Let's say one thing, no one could take away this unique ability from him. The girls managed to cut off a bunch of hands from the many-handed mutant. Horror said despairingly that Seaton was a hopeless monster. She bitterly said that no matter how much the boy tried to grab others' abilities, inside he would still remain empty and powerless. He threw this out with a bitter smile. People who cannot part with their holy swords and consider themselves heroes are actually no better than himself. Suddenly one of the hands sharply reached out to Carolina. The hands, lightning fast and full of energy, reached for the sacred swords. The girls noticed that these hands moved by themselves and easily took the warrior's weapons. With each day his strength grew stronger. He mastered the skill of using the holy sword. Suddenly he noticed Will was standing a little aside and was busy with something by himself. Finally the hero felt true faith in himself. Now he firmly knew he could overcome everything. He pondered how much joy his right hand could bring to people. Seaton could not understand why Will still knew how to use his skills. This ignited rage in him, and he decided to do everything possible to stop Will. The girls, shouting, swear not to let the monster ruin Will's plans. The dragon also decided to support his master and decisively ordered the blacksmith to work faster. The hero raised his eyes to the sky, and from the bottom of his heart begged to be allowed to create the sacred artifact. Set attacked Vil's friends. He barked at his brother, demanding that he stop resisting. Set declared that from now on everything would belong only to him. The hero immediately used 10 portions of Milku Ikagami. He finally forged the sacred sword of light, and the hero beamed with happiness upon seeing this new weapon. He spoke aloud and thought to himself, without special abilities, it is simply impossible to make a sacred sword. He will raise the holy weapon high above his head. The younger brother shouted indignantly that only the heavens can grant sacred swords, and no person is capable of creating them by hand. The hero joined his friends again. He swung his sword, which blazed with bright light above them all. Finally, the girls returned not only their hands, but also all the magical artifacts. This light seemed to stop the destruction, not allowing evil to take another step forward. The hero shared. This sword possesses incredible power. It can bring back to life everything destroyed and restore what is ruined. Seaton got angry and insisted that these words be repeated to him once more. The many armed ones said that he devours everything around him, and then everything simply disappears without a trace. If such a thing suddenly falls, the capital could end up in ruins. Vil concentrated the power of his weapon and summoned from the heavens a sacred strike pulsating with the energy of the sun. He directed this power straight against his own brother. The rays of the sword flared above the city. The curse hanging over Satana dissipated when warm rays of the sun fell upon it. The city once again burst forth from the ashes, and with it returned the famous master with the golden hand, Vil. The townspeople could finally use their hands again. Even some people were brought back to life. But the people still could not understand how it happened and what really occurred. Ice froze, watching the heavenly strike filled with solar power. It seemed like a true miracle to him. And then Caroline asked if he knew anything about that mysterious technique. The cat replied that it was a special technique, once used by the legendary hero Lawrence. He was the one who saved the human world from the terrible god. The girl, with her heart in her throat, wanted to make sure whether Vil really managed to reproduce the legendary hero's move. The sacred sword whispered that the blacksmith forged from scratch the 8th great holy sword, and even endowed it with the ability to heal even the most severe wounds. Such power was unattainable for an ordinary person. The hero carefully examined the sword and realized it had not yet awakened from its sleep. He only praised it for the excellently done work and allowed it to go. Moro froze. He could not believe his eyes. The sword of light lay before him, broken in half. We replied that this weapon had simply fallen asleep, probably still very tiny, a true infant who cannot stay awake for long. Set suddenly realized that his elder brother had acquired such a powerful supernatural force that he now seemed almost omnipotent, like a true god. Guilt was clearly written on his face. Suddenly Beast Woman loudly shouted at Seton, asking if he still wished to argue. She fervently insisted that the master had shown him mercy, that was why he remained alive. The girl froze, intently watching as Will confidently approached his brother. He asked Setna if he had suffered any wounds. The younger brothers admitted. Earlier, they had not even thought about what the hero was doing. It seemed to them that the city was simply lucky, and all the good things happened here due to a fortunate coincidence. The young man finally realized that all this time he had underestimated his elder brother. This discovery was not easy for him, and left bitterness in his heart. Then Sitten could not believe his eyes. Even without Vil's golden hand, he created such wonders that it seemed as if the gods themselves were helping him.